Let's go to the old folks' home. We can get doped up and then all get stoned. Let's go to the old folks' home. Might have been here more if only I known.
This is a warning to all living mortals. That who shall ever open this chest of demons will release 13 of the most terrifying ghosts upon the face of the earth. Okay, cut it. This isn't going to work. Let's try some nostalgia bait.
It's mighty strange. You looking at the leafy rain. I can't tell if you're in bed. Or have you picked your dog yet? It's in bed. Got your dog bite. It's in bed.
Okay, that was better. But let's try something a bit more cinematic.
You about to witness hip-hop in its most purest, most rawest form, flow, almost flawless, most hardest, most honest, known artist. Chip off the old block, but old Doc is back. Looks like Batman brought his own Robin. Oh God, Saddam's got his own Laden. Off the hinges, oranges, peach, pears, plums, oranges. Yeah, here I come, I'm inches away from you, there fear none. Hip-hop is in a state of 911, so let's get down to business. I don't got no time to play around, what is this? Must be a circus in town, let's shut the shit down on these clowns. Can I get a witness? Hell, let's get down to business. I don't got no time to play around, what is this? Must be a circus in town, let's shut the shit down on these clowns. Can I get a witness?
Yeah, that's the shit I like. Let's start the Barroom podcast. Take it away, Jacob.
What up, ladies and gentlemen? We're back here for the first time in 2 weeks on our normal time slot, and hopefully I can keep it in our normal time slot for the next few weeks afterwards. But we're here for episode 147 of the Bar Room, and I'm here joining with a lovely cast of characters here. Quick little sidebar before we get into our introductions. If you guys were with us Saturday afternoon when we did last week's Bar Room, there was a little snafu on the YouTube side of things, not on anything else, but except for YouTube itself. And essentially, we were going over, Insider remembers this because he probably still has PTSD over this, Big Brother UK. And basically, I was explaining some of the things that were happening at a certain season. And for whatever reason, YouTube auto copyrighted the stream and it got taken down. We still continued over on the Rumble side of things and the YouTube side of things. So at that point, it was like, well, since they already took it down on YouTube, might as well keep going. I went back and appealed it, and literally almost immediately, it was like, oh, oopsie daisy, that was our fault. And it was like, yeah, and it would have been great before you shut down my stream, YouTube, since I knew that I was in the right beforehand. And this is what happens. One of these, I'm assuming it was like Channel 4, one of these like YouTube, UK networks, but there's certain YouTube channels from like news media outlets or just corporate giants that whenever they detect any bit of their stuff being streamed anywhere on anyone's stream, it's automatically claimed and it's automatically blocked and shut down. Like if you try to watch anything from WWE live on your stream, you will get cut off within 4 seconds. They will shut your entire thing down. They do not allow any of that stuff. somehow there had to have been like a second or two that was from like a Channel 4 riff, and because it automatically caught it went to shutting it down. I knew that it was fair use. I put that in there. I'm gonna give you a little inside baseball here. I literally had Chat GPT write my letter about why my video should have been approved, and like I said, within 4 minutes, I was like, oh, okay, appeal granted. Your video's back on there. It's like, so you can't see the last like 10-15 minutes of that show here on YouTube. Go over to our Rumble side of things, and you can see the whole thing. And in case for whatever reason this stream goes down for whatever dumbass reason, because we're in the YouTubes, go over to our Rumble side. I'll even put the Rumble link here in the chat for you guys. Stay over on our Twitter side of things as well. We will not get kicked off on those networks. I can guarantee you that. So that's my plan over there. So like I said, check out the Rumble side and check out Twitter. So for whatever reason we have to happen again, you guys know that we're still alive here on this channel. Now that I got that out of the way, let's go ahead and introduce our guys who are joining us here. Cider, what's going on?
I don't know. I kind of forgot everything in the middle of that, so I got distracted by the UK and that lady. No, I was thinking about that lady that thought she had a butt, but she didn't. She like borrowed her butt from Paris Hilton, and yeah.
But was that the one who was in like the little, like, what was it, the Playboy bunny outfit, who was like 90 pounds soaking wet?
The one that died,
yeah, the dead one.
The dead one. Yeah, that's the one, and that's why I totally forgot. So it's going right along without me.
Yeah, I was more focused on the Shabazz guy, the one who literally threatened to kill himself live on the air, and then they was like, yeah, okay, you got to go now, because now we're liable for your shit. So go over here.
Mickey Rourke had a plan B.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about his plan B later on here in this show. But Rob, how's it going there, buddy? It's been a couple of weeks. How's it been?
Yeah, I was in New York on Saturday, so I couldn't join. But it was good. I made it out alive.
You didn't get pushed in front of a train.
No, and it's so funny too, because like I mean, I had enough time to see Sinners if I really wanted to, and apparently the movie theater in New York City, I'm trying to think if it's the Regal or the AMC. It's apparently like one of the most populated for this specific movie, which is whatever. It's New York City. It's a city of 12 million people. Most of them are politically aligned a certain way. That's like, okay, I'm not terribly surprised about that or whatever, but anyway, so yeah, I still haven't seen Sinners. Warfare was pretty good. We're starting to kind of get some movies now. The Accountant 2 I'm looking forward to, which I still can't believe I'm saying that, but as ridiculous as the premise the original was, it was an absolutely incredibly entertaining movie that I just can't deny. So and I still have to see Jason Statham's movie that's out that again is apparently over the top and ridiculous, but apparently awesome. So this is what we have to choose from.
It's decent.
Is The Accountant the one with Ben Affleck being a badass nerd?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's supposed to be autistic.
Yeah.
Why is are you seeing a pattern? I'm starting to see a pattern.
Autistic superheroes?
Yeah, right? I'm starting. It's weird, right? I didn't notice that. Like almost every character Daisy Ripley. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll get to her later on. No, Daisy really just looked autistic. She wasn't actually autistic, so there's a difference.
Oh, that's my bad. See, they put a bowl cut on her.
I don't track autistic characters very well. They're just weird to me, So, but yeah, I mean, maybe they're like, oh, hey, well, there's this.
It's a weird line because it's like. On one hand, it's like you have people who try to play autistic and then they just play retarded, which then it makes it offensive. But then on the other side, you get a kid who's actually autistic to be in the role. Then it just feels exploitative. So it's really like a line where it's very hard to like find that medium. You know what I mean?
Well, I have to ask, why do we have to do that? Why don't we just say that character behaves that way because that's just how they behave? Why do we have to be like, no, it's representative of these real people who have to deal with this?
But see, this problem was solved in the 90s when a movie came out called Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis, where he had to protect this kid from the NSA. There's a movie where the NSA was trying to murder a child because he cracked some code or whatever. And it was like that. Just Hollywood, you had it right there. That's perfect. That's like the autistic kid's the victim, like whatever. Bruce Willis is the good guy and the government is evil. It's right there. Just follow that formula and you will sell so many movie tickets. But They have different agendas, I guess.
They got yeah. Spencer points out the Rain Man. It's apparently we have this belief that autism gives you superpowers, and
yes.
Okay, they're the X-Men. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, but what they're thinking with this Killbot series, because I see that going around being like the new autistic superhero is Killbot, and he's just all I find him to be is just kind of quizzical and new to being humanoid. I don't see anything that's like I used to work with autistic kids. I don't see anything leaping out at me that's like I'm an autistic robot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's weird. We'll definitely get into it on another day. But I do got some of you guys over here in the chat with us. We're on Rumble. We're here on X. We're here on YouTube, obviously. Secure Muter says, Godspeed, brother. Godspeed to you, too. Spencer's out mowing his lawn out in Arizona because now that makes sense. But, whatever the case is, there's buddy. It's just, you roll that little stick thing over that dirt or whatever it is you're doing out there. But he's listening to us here. Leslie Tarkin is here saying, hail to all you lovely people as well. Top Dog is here with us. Keith is over on the Rumble side of things. Dobafett is here. Who else do we got here? Neozoic is here on the chat with us tonight. We got Cider Hype going. I don't know what is it with you in the Pete and Pete song? Like what's happening there?
So every time that main chorus comes through, I hear, "Hey Cindy, got your dog? Bye, I," and that's what I hear is some guy has got Cindy's dog and he's saying goodbye.
Well,
and it just
the
makes me
song's
laugh.
called "Hey Sandy," so you got the name wrong often.
Well, it's not my fault. That's the singer's fault for making that sound like Cindy than Sandy. And did he get Sandy's dog? Is that?
Who knows at this point? It's not very clear. Who else do we got here? DK is here saying Triple H more like Trigger Snowflake H. Oh, we'll get to that here in just a second.
Oh, that's right. The only thing I remember about Pete and Pete, obviously not the name because I didn't get it right the first time when we talked about this, is the glowing appendix in the jar.
Oh yeah. I remember you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the one that really scarred me because it had a heartbeat. Every time the camera would draw in on it, it had a heartbeat, and I was like, "That no, it shouldn't do that. That's not where that goes.
That's not how organs work.
That's not what that does."
Yeah, I saw him. Thought you were talking about Bam Margera's band. Yeah, I have no idea that there is a band out there called him, and I was like, that's definitely not our topic for tonight's show. B.S. Warren here says, we make Yi the new pope, are we still gonna die? I mean, I'm pretty sure he won't be the first gay pope, so I mean, there's that. Trust me, we almost talked about that story, and I was like, I don't have the time to do it right now, not today. Fiona Rad is here as well. So yeah, I didn't think it might work. It's just today, bro. Well, like I said, we got a lot to cover here. We're going to start off a little lighter and then go into some deeper stuff. I think probably a more serious topic in the grand scheme of the world. And then, of course, we'll end things with Limp Bizkit. So that's kind of how we're going to play things up here for tonight. But I want to start off with this story. And it's very, very odd. And I love going back to you guys because, like I said, you guys are not in this pro wrestling bubble that I am trapped into here. But right now, there are a group of people on the internet who are furiously blaming Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for ruining WrestleMania for the sole purpose that he was not there. And you're thinking to yourself, how does that work? How does The Rock get the blame for a show that he technically had nothing to do with? Let me rewind here just a little bit. For those of you guys who don't know, Triple H, former wrestler Triple H, is currently the head of creative for the WWE. So he's the person in charge of all of the shows that you guys are watching right now, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, the pay-per-view. He's a guy who loves to get all the credit for what is quote-unquote called the Triple H era. Like every time they end the show, it's like executive producer Paul Levesque, which is his real name, and he wants his name front and center on absolutely everything, right? Because he wants to be the face of this era. The problem is that Triple H loves to get all the credit when WWE is doing well, but when WWE is not doing so well, he doesn't like getting the blame for stuff that happens here. And actually, I'm going to pull this up here too while I'm talking here. Kind of rewind here. Back at the Royal Rumble, Triple H decided that he was going to put Jey Uso and Charlotte Flair as the Royal Rumble winners. That was going to be his big thing going into WrestleMania. That plan got overwhelmingly rejected by pretty much everyone. There was a lot of people angry about Jey Uso, a lot of people angry about Charlotte Flair. It is what it is, right? Then you fast forward to the Elimination Chamber. Somewhere around February, WWE realized, hey, look, ticket sales are not doing well for Elimination Chamber. Ticket sales are not doing well for WrestleMania either, because we're in a stadium that hosts about 65,000 people. You can expand to about 70,000 people. When you do the full expansion over at the Las Vegas Stadium, and people were not very happy. So as a result of this, TKO, which is the brand that pretty much runs both the UFC and WWE, they reached out to The Rock, and they wanted The Rock to be involved as a means to sell tickets. Now, anyone with a brain saw this happening months ago, but there's a lot of people in denial. So you guys remember about 2 months ago where John Cena turned heel at Elimination Chamber, and it was a big deal because John Cena was like a bad guy and all that stuff? That was the last time that we saw Rock. And we didn't see him. He hasn't been back since then. So WWE went forward with WrestleMania as it happened last Sunday night. And needless to say, it wasn't a great show. Some of it was good. Some of it was mediocre, but the main event itself between John Cena and Cody Rhodes got lambasted by absolutely everyone because the match itself was not very good. It wasn't very interesting. And for some reason, people just assumed The Rock was going to show up towards the end. And instead, we got Travis Scott. Travis Scott, a rapper who is not a pro wrestler in any way, shape, or form, came out. And first of all, it took him like an hour to get to the ring. It took him like an hour to get to the ring. And then what happened is that he helped Cena win. Cena wins. The show ends. And then that was it. And everyone was like, this is one of the worst main events I've ever seen in my entire life. So you figure that because Triple H, and this is the Triple H era, his name and face is everywhere. He was literally on TV like 3 times during night one, that he would get some of the heat and some of the blame for this. But according to wrestling fans, it's not his fault WrestleMania is bad. It was The Rock's fault, because The Rock started a storyline 2 months ago and he wasn't there at WrestleMania to finish it. So by that proxy, he's the reason why WrestleMania sucks. So everyone's now blaming The Rock for a show that he wasn't even at and had nothing to do with. So The Rock had to go on Pat McAfee's show earlier today and kind of explain what happened over the last few months and explain why he wasn't at WrestleMania, because now everyone's blaming him for ruining the show. So this is a little clip from him kind of explaining why he did the thing with John Cena 2 months ago and why he wasn't at the show that took place last Sunday. So here's his explanation of events of what happened over the last couple of months.
Sales are a little slow, but beyond that, he goes, what we are finding is with Elimination Chamber, it's become the pay-per-view that's been interesting. Fans have had fun, but it's also the conduit to WrestleMania. And how do we create a Elimination Chamber that people must tune in to see? How do we create that? And he goes, right now, we don't have that. And he said, will the final boss show up? I said, well, let me give it some thought and let me get back to you. So I gave it some thought. I got back to Ari. I got back to Triple H and Nick. We had a call. And I said, I have an idea. What's most important to the final boss? The most important thing to the final boss isn't titles. It's not money. It's not fame. Been there, done that, and grateful for that. Final boss wants your soul. And what does that mean? What that means, that doesn't mean, hey, the final boss wants you to act like this, be like this at his beck and call and treat you like crap and make you do all these things that are unbecoming or embarrassing. That's not what the final boss wants. That's not how the final boss flies. No. What that means is...
Now, let me just clarify this, because some of you guys, I know people like Cider are looking very, very confused right now, because it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson referring to the final boss, who is Dwayne The Rock Johnson in the third person. So he's saying the final boss, he's literally talking about himself as a TV character on the show. So just a little clarification here.
Okay. Whatever you could think of in your head. So Cody Rhodes, whatever dreams you have, whatever ambitions you have, even if they're dark, even if they're amazing and they're full of light, even if they're scary, whatever those are, you tell the final boss he's going to make it all happen. You wave that magic wand, he'll make it all happen. So when it comes to giving me your soul, giving the final boss your soul, that is what you want, not what the final boss wants. And so what does the final boss get out of that? I get your soul for life. That's what the final boss gets out of that. So now we go into Elimination Chamber. with this idea of, will Cody Rhodes sell his soul to the final boss? And my thought at that time, and you and I might have even I know we talked about this, was it was a litmus test to find out, in my opinion, how will fans respond if Cody sold his soul to the final boss?
So that was his explanation to the whole thing with Elimination Chamber. That was 2 months ago, right? So, okay, you think to yourself, okay, well, why are we blaming The Rock for what happened at WrestleMania? So people have been blaming him because they don't want to blame Triple H, but they say that, no, The Rock ruined WrestleMania because out of the 14 matches that took place on Saturday and Sunday, he wasn't there for the main event of the very last match of the night. So, yeah, he had to go on to explain why he wasn't at WrestleMania last Sunday. Here's what he said.
I knew then the best thing for the final boss, we've established this idea of Cody's soul. We can always come back to it. I did feel, and I made the call, I don't want to be involved in that. Step back. Let the final boss step back into the shadows. Let all the spotlight go to John. Let it go to Cody. Let's not make it about Cody's soul eventually or John's soul. No, let's let them do what they do. And I called John after Elimination Chamber, spoke to him, called Cody, and I said, I think the final boss's work is done. We've established it. We just pulled off the greatest angle in the history of professional wrestling, other than Hulk Hogan turning heel back in the 90s. I said, this is amazing. We have 6 weeks. Now, let's build. You guys go and crush it. And I'll be right there with you. And I'm always here if you need me. But I think it's best for the final boss not to be involved in that finish. You guys go. So they had 6 weeks to plan for that. So I love the finish of the match. I would have finessed things a little differently on how they got there, but that's just me creatively. There are a lot of minds in the room. That's my thought. But still, ultimately, the bottom line was I love John getting 17.
So that's his explanation here. So there's a lot of things going on here, but essentially what The Rock is saying here is that, hey, look, I helped you guys start this angle 2 months ago, right? 2 months ago, I helped you guys start this and you got the ball running with John Cena turning heel. You essentially had 2 months to tell a story without me. And I kind of told you I wasn't going to be there and I didn't need to be there. So you got John Cena, you got Cody Rhodes, you got 6 weeks. Tell the story, move this thing forward. And what he's saying is that basically he didn't feel like that they did enough during that time period. So before all this was going on, a lot of people were criticizing Triple H, the guy who's, like I said, his face is on everything. And they were saying that, well, Triple H didn't do a really good job of keeping the interest of the storyline going. This is the interview that Triple H did about 2 days ago. Keep in mind, this is before WrestleMania. This is before all the heat happened of this bad main event. And Triple H is basically pointing the blame at the fans, saying that it's the fans that are being critical of this whole situation that's ruining everything.
It ruins it for people. The world was so much better when nobody knew. And you just watched it. And now when you go out and they try to ruin the surprise, and I get it, that's their business, and they try to tell you the shit that's going on. You just ruin it for people. The business that feeds you, you're now ruining it for people and lessening their enjoyment of it to a large degree because you're telling them all this right or wrong that is going to happen. The biggest thing I see right now on the internet is people thinking, oh, and then they're going to do this. Yeah, no, we're not. You know what I mean? And then The Rock's going to show up and he's going to do this and he's going to have the greatest match with this guy of all time. Well, except for his movie schedule, which doesn't permit him from doing anything in this time.
But I have to say, among the great things you've done as an executive, something happened. The clamps have been put down. Stuff is not getting out the way it was. There was a period where it was bad. It used to drive me insane.
Yeah, we try, and there's still where I'm like, we talk about something, and the next day I see it. I'm like, what the? How? Who? Like, I want to smack someone. Like, how did this get out today? There are some that I see that I realize, okay, that's accurate, but they're just guessing. Right. There's 5 different ways they could have gone, and by next week it'll be something else. The memo that came out that said Drew McIntyre was going to win the Elimination Chamber, and now everybody believes that that's like, okay, great. Yeah. But setting yourself up for unbelievable expectations. I think about it when I, when you.
So basically, what he's saying here is that the fans who are trying to overanalyze everything and be overcritical of things is that the reason why the show was bad because you guys essentially believe that what was going to happen at WrestleMania was never going to happen. And then, of course, when it didn't happen and everyone was upset, people were going to be like, well, then why did this not happen? Triple H is saying, hey, look, don't blame me. A lot of this is your fault. And now those fans are going out and say, well, no, it's not our fault. It's not Triple H's fault because we love Triple H. It's Rock's fault. He's the one to blame here. And now everyone's coming out with videos and responses saying that The Rock ruined WrestleMania. This is all The Rock. How dare he do this to us? And like, how dare he not show up and finish? Like, so I'm just thinking to myself, as a normal human being trying to navigate this sea of stupidity, how exactly did we get here? And here's the best way I can summarize this, is that for several years, everyone on the internet has been told that Vince McMahon was the problem and the core root of all their problems in life, primarily when it comes to pro wrestling. But now Vince McMahon's been gone for a solid 2 years, which means that you can't blame Vince anymore when wrestling sucks because he's gone. So who are you going to blame now? They can't blame Triple H because Triple H is the savior. He's the one that they've been telling themselves for years, if he was in control of everything would be awesome. So when something happens that you don't like, can't blame that guy. Who we're going to blame now? Oh, The Rock. He's a Hollywood celebrity. He's not a real wrestler anymore. We're blaming this guy. He's at fault for everything. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I have never seen, and look, I know we're talking about wrestling fans in the grand scheme of things, but I have never seen the stupidity of wrestling fans reach this peak. This is almost blackpilling in a way in the small world of pro wrestling. I'm not talking about in life in general, but just the small world in pro wrestling. It is blackpilling just how utterly stupid and incomprehensible a lot of these people have gotten. And this is why we're here right now. So, Rob, you're a pro wrestling fan. You know a lot more about the WWF than Cider does. I'm going to start here with you. What's kind of your whole take of the situation of Triple H is running the entire show now? He's the guy in charge. The Rock, who is on the board of directors, comes in whenever WWE needs help, yet somehow they're blaming him for everything bad that WWE is doing, even though Triple H is the one who's literally running the day-to-day operations of the creative of this show.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I think it's funny that the guys that I was watching 20 years ago are the ones trying to change WWE or WWF for the better. Triple H seems to be in over his head. He doesn't seem to really know how to run a wrestling company. So I think that's the issue. I mean, if The Rock did not have a contract, if he wasn't contracted to show up as a wrestler, because again, there's all kinds of liability and insurance issues with I mean, on movie sets. There are insurance issues where, you know, if someone has cancer, if someone is sick or they have injuries or they can be injured because they do stunts, there's a certain amount of insurance that gets taken out. I can't imagine what that cost the WWF or WWE to get The Rock in the ring. So, I mean, I think that all of the logistics, all the financial stuff is really interesting, but The Rock isn't a wrestler anymore. You know, he's a movie star. I mean, we pretty much saw that last WrestleMania when, I'm sorry if my memory's failing me, but I'm pretty sure Cody Rhodes won, or did he?
It was a 2-night, and this is the other thing too. WrestleMania is 2 nights now, which is the stupidest thing in the entire world, but they're only doing it for money at this point. Yeah. The Rock beat Cody Rhodes. So here, even we'll wind it even a bit further here. This is kind of where the big point of contention here. The Rock showed up last year at WrestleMania at the very beginning of the year. He wanted to face Roman Reigns, who was the champion at that time period at WrestleMania. So the setup was going to be The Rock, Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 40. A few weeks later, Triple H, who's running the show, decided that he was going to have Cody Rhodes win the Royal Rumble and go on to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and essentially put Rock in a position to where, okay, you can face Roman if you want to, but if you take away Cody's main event opportunity, the fans are going to turn on you. That's what led to the creation of the Final Boss character, because Rock basically said, the only way we can make this work now is that I turn heel and become the bad guy and go against Cody Rhodes. So that was led to last year's WrestleMania event. The Rock beat Cody night 1, and then Cody won the title night 2. Right. And that's basically the genesis point of all this.
Right. So I mean, and so we kind of saw that last year where it's like, okay, we get it. All of this is to generate interest in WrestleMania, in the event, whatever. And a year later, they have not progressed forward. Like that's the most surprising thing, is that this is an incredibly valuable business, at least per the stock market and what their perceived value is. And in an entire year, they could not come up with a storyline for their biggest event, for the biggest night in their entertainment or sport, or however you want to look at it. They couldn't come up with something different. So they had some lackluster John Cena returning and beating Cody Rhodes and it's like, whatever. I mean, John Cena is not really a wrestler anymore either. But again, it's like the biggest names, the biggest faces, the stars of your sport are like these half in, half out, can't commit because they've got Hollywood projects, and like, you can't blame them, but they haven't really I mean, whatever. You have a better opinion on the actual talent that's in the WWE. Whereas I'm more cut off from it, where like I come from the Attitude Era, where it's like, it's these names that, they might be good athletes, they might be good wrestlers, but there's a lot of technique missing that used to exist. Storylines are crap. And again, just the biggest event of the year, this is the end result. So no, I don't blame The Rock. I think that he kind of saw like, oh, you guys are still struggling with this. You're bringing me in late to the game. I'll help you, but and Triple H, here's the thing: if you're going to be held responsible, and then you come out with the shit execution, I mean, I don't know. He couldn't see that happening. He didn't have the foresight to be like, man, I better knock this out of the park, or like, I'm going to get blamed for this being a shit sandwich. You know what I mean? So,
and Rob, here's another thing too, and I can break this down a little bit once I get Cider's thoughts here. But as an old school WWF fan, that the Royal Rumble is kind of like the starting point that leads to the road to WrestleMania, right? Someone wins the Royal Rumble, it's like we're off to the races. But there's a good, basically, especially nowadays, it's like a 3 to 4 month space in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, where if you're putting a show together that's supposed to be your biggest show of the entire year, you kind of want to know where you're going with the show by the time Royal Rumble gets around. That way, okay, here's what's going to happen on the show, on the WrestleMania show. How do we get here to a point where the fans are interested in what we're going to do? So your plan for WrestleMania should already be set by the early stage of the year. The rest of the months leading up to it is basically building fans' interest into what you're doing. And this year specifically, a lot of the matches for 2 nights of WrestleMania felt like they were basically thrown together in the last 2 weeks. And when you talk about the quality of the show, it felt like a show that was thrown together in the course of the last 2 weeks. And people were complaining before everyone started blaming The Rock that, man, this show doesn't make much sense. It doesn't feel like WrestleMania. And like I said, Triple H is the guy in charge. You can't be the person who sits there and wants to take all the credit for when things go bad and when things go right, and then want to throw somebody else under the bus when things go wrong. Like, it's not going to work long term. Cider, what's your take on this whole situation from the outside looking in? Now that you understand who the final boss is.
They're all old. I mean, that's all I have to say is they're all old. Like, I get it. Like, Hogan was in his 50s doing crazy stuff in the NWO. So was Randy Savage, But these... it was a special event. It was unique. It was kind of emblematic of these guys flaming out, if you will,
Yeah.
And with these guys, there doesn't seem to be a point. The NWO was sort of like an expression of these guys kind of trying to remain tough and relevant and cool and don't mess with us. Whereas this just seems to be like, all right, I got 10 minutes, Triple H, and I owe you. All right. And it always seems like it's an errand for these guys to participate in this entire event, even though it made them who they are as far as like their movie star career goes. And so I just honestly hear The Rock's like bored and frustration and just general malaise with anything related to oiled up men throwing each other around in a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately what has been forgotten in this entire, event, this entire, I don't know what this is anymore, entertainment franchise, industry, whatever it is. is that it's oiled up men throwing each other around. That's all. That's all it's supposed to be, boys. We've gone and turned it into like this edgy thing for kids who didn't like Power Rangers but still liked Power Rangers. You know what I mean? Like every time Jacob shows me clips from that, I'm like, this is just Power Rangers for edgy kids. You know, it's just, you know, some guy gets thrown into a power box and sparks fly everywhere, and you're supposed to believe that he was electrocuted on live television and not a goddamn soul tried to help him until he was dead, smoldering on the ground. And I'm like, no. You just need a rubber suit and Rita Repulsa going, yeah, now you're dead, gold dust. You know, and that's all you needed.
And then the final boss gets Goldar the rock bottom.
Yeah, right?
But and Cider's right, because like even take ECW, which was just like late Saturday night, like South Philly, everybody has like, you know, kendo sticks or what is it, like barbed wire 4x4s and steel. It's just like, okay, like you don't want to be in that area. Okay. Like you don't want, and that's like each wrestling federation or whatever had its own brand, had its own flavor, had its own, and it was good. You know, I mean, I've heard Jacob talk about it. I know he doesn't like ECW because it really is terrible wrestling. It really is just like shock value wrestling. But I will say that they brought some of that to the WWF later on with tables, ladders, and chairs and the Dudley Boys. And there were some really good matches that came out of that. It's just the whole of ECW really was like a dumpster fire. Like New Jack was literally like, literally charged with multiple violent felonies, like in his real life. So just, yeah, I mean, it was just a dumpster fire, but anyway, there used to be a lot of color in wrestling, and that seems to have been slowly bled out over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. So I'm going to peel back the curtain just a little bit more here with this whole situation, because this is another clip. Now, keep in mind, this is the interview that Triple H did before WrestleMania. And when you listen to his comments beforehand, he was really going hard on people who were criticizing the booking leading up to WrestleMania. Basically, he's going after people who was criticizing him. And now that period has passed and WrestleMania is over, like I said, it didn't get a glowing review. Now all of a sudden we shifted from the fans pointing the finger at Triple H, and now, it's The Rock. It's all, point something out here for a second. I'm gonna play this clip here, then something I want to explain here.
This will sound offensive. Every critic that is out there, I wish I could tell people off being a critic. Be a fan. Go watch this and be a fan. If I tell you go to the movies and watch this movie, I saw it's really good, and you just go to the movie as a fan, you watch the movie, you have one opinion. If I tell you, hey, go see this movie, but can you give me a one-page detail, like things on what you liked, what you didn't like, and if it worked for you or didn't work for you. You watch it.
Somebody off screen reminding him not to swear.
You watch the product totally differently. It ruins it for people.
I will say this as someone who's actually a movie critic. If you told me to go watch this movie and it's a giant hunking pile of shit, I'm literally going to not take your opinion seriously afterwards, after the fact, because that's something that you would do. Like, you basically put it this way: if you go out there and you tell me like the Barbie movie is the greatest movie that you've ever seen, I'm probably not going to take your future opinion about movies seriously after that point, because like, okay, you have a shit taste in movies. Now look, if you want to own your shit taste in movies, fine, that's you. You also have to acknowledge you have a shit taste in movies. Here's kind of the problem with Triple H, and this is why you're really seeing this conflict with Triple H and The Rock right now. A lot of these modern wrestling fans have only really been watching wrestling probably in the last 5 years. So they have absolutely no context of Triple H as a wrestler, right? They see that this guy now, this old bald man who's yelling at clouds right now, they probably don't even remember the time period where he had hair. This is the context of wrestling fans we're dealing with here, right? So if you know, you watch wrestling as long as we have, you know that back in the Attitude Era, Triple H had a notorious reputation for being a politician. He would basically screw over his own mother if it meant that he would get a higher part on the card, right? People who used to work with him backstage for many years used to call him out on this. They stopped doing that now because now they know he runs the show. And if they ever want to get invited back to WWE, they have to play nice, right? But this has been well known for years. There's nothing new. Triple H and The Rock have had heat with one another. Basically, when The Rock got there in 1996, Triple H has tried multiple times to bury The Rock behind the scenes because he was upset that The Rock became more popular before he did. The Rock became a champion before he did. Rock at one point became the biggest act in pro wrestling. And you go back to like 99, like 2000 era, like The Rock was arguably the most popular superstar in the history of the business at that time period. He hosted Saturday Night Live. Triple H was on that episode of Saturday Night Live. Triple H would have not been on that episode of Saturday Night Live without The Rock. So there's always been a hierarchy here with these two, right? And then obviously The Rock went on to do Hollywood stuff. And the first few years of his career wasn't very good, let's be honest. But somewhere in the 2010s, he really blew up. And all of a sudden, he became like the big guy in Hollywood. Meanwhile, Triple H stayed with WWE, stayed wrestling, and basically worked his way into running the developmental NXT. And when the whole fallout with Vince McMahon happened, he basically took the book. He became the guy running the show. So now you have this situation where Triple H is running everything. The Rock is still this Hollywood megastar, what I believe he's doing a Scorsese movie next.
Yeah.
Is his next project. Still on the top of the Hollywood food chain here. So he's in a position where he really doesn't need WWE, but WWE needs him. And obviously he has more, let's say, stroke to do what he wants to do rather than Triple H, who kind of have to sit there and takes it. So these two still have heat with one another. They still don't like each other. I think it's becoming more clear over the last few weeks that these two definitely have problems with one another. But ever since The Rock came back a couple of years ago, there's been these stories that have been leaking online. They're all throwing, The Rock under the bus. Triple H just mentioned this a second ago. He was saying that, I make a plan. It's in the dirt sheets. And it's like, how did this happen? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, he's going to play dumb, but we all know that there are people out there in WWE who will intentionally leak information if they want to either put out a narrative or if they want to bury someone and damage someone's reputation. There's been a lot of stuff trying to subtly bury The Rock for everything that's been happening over the last couple of years, saying that, it's The Rock's ego. Yeah, he has such a big, massive ego. Keep in mind, in the context of real life, with the exception of the Maui stuff, because he deserves all the heat for that shit. But everyone who's had a personal interaction with The Rock in real life say that he's probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, like ever, right? With the exception of some of the things that have happened over the last couple of years, no one's ever said, "Oh, The Rock's a dick, he's an asshole, he's terrible." No one's ever said that.
He pooped on my face.
Exactly, right? Triple H, who has a reputation of being a conniving bastard, is dealing with a new group of fans. Like I said, they don't know the old Triple H. Same thing with Paul Heyman. You mentioned ECW. Everyone, all these kids, they love Paul Heyman now because they only know him as Roman Reigns' manager or Brock Lesnar's manager. They don't remember the Paul Heyman from 30 years ago who still owes his talent $12 million. He never paid them. Most of those guys are probably dead now, will never get paid, but they don't know that Paul Heyman because they weren't watching at that time. They only know the fat man who talks on the mic now. So you have two generations of wrestling fans, and it's almost like they're living in two different realities simultaneously. And I think the older generation who knows exactly who Triple H is and what his character is, they're more siding with Rock on this whole situation because they've known Triple H long enough to know who he's truly about. The newer generation, the one who kind of focus on the generation now, they're more into what Triple H is because their only recollection of Triple H is, he was great when he was running NXT. They have no context of him being the Cerebral Assassin or the Evolution or DX back 30. They have no context of any of that. So it's almost as if their narrative and perception of these two individuals, The Rock and Triple H, based on one that they've essentially created over like the last 2 to 5 years. And that's what makes it kind of more infuriating as someone who's been watching wrestling since like 1995, who understands the situation a lot better, to see people. It's almost like you're seeing people being gaslit in real time, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it. That's kind of how I feel, Rob. I'll let you get the final words here.
Yeah, I just go back to Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So it just
all the way back Connecticut blue blood.
Yeah, and so I don't know. He doesn't seem to be very good at this job. I obviously, if my job was on the line, I would have rather him thrown everything at the fan. You know what I mean? Like, go big or go home. Like, try something in lieu of like the disappointing execution that resulted. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched wrestling in going on 22 years now. So, and you're right. Paul Heyman, there's a very long record of him being a cocksucker to a lot of people that he owes money to, and that he screwed out of opportunities, and there's just a laundry list. So
Paul Heyman may legitimately be the biggest scumbag in the history of professional wrestling, and I'm not even being overzealous when I say, like, there's legitimate evidence to support he may be the biggest scumbag the history of pro wrestling has ever seen. Yet, because none of these people in today's wrestling era has ever seen ECW, has never heard the stories, have never gone back to figure out what New Jack used to say about him, what Tommy Dreamer used to say about him, guys like Stevie Richards and Shane Douglas and all those guys who actually worked for Paul Heyman, guys like Mike Awesome who left ECW because Paul Heyman owed him almost $1 million, never paid him, so he left. They don't know that guy. So all they know is the guy who's like, oh, he's like the CM Punk. He's a Paul Heyman guy. That's the only Paul Heyman that they know. And because of that's the perception of Paul Heyman that they have now. And like I said, it's just very interesting to see how this is completely flipped in the course of like a generation. It says, do you really think that TKO will fire Triple H in the near future? Really? There's a multitude of things that will happen. I think the only way that Triple H leaves is that, one, somehow this relationship with Netflix completely falls apart. And I know the numbers for Netflix is not what the Netflix executives wanted, but they are negotiating with the UFC, which is the other side of TKO. So maybe if the UFC brings in Netflix, that they can somehow use the UFC to kind of mend the relationship with WWE. That's possible. Or if this thing really does blow up and The Rock basically says, hey, look, I've had it with Triple H and his crap, get rid of him. I already got a guy who can be a better booker than this guy. And Rock basically uses his, stroke, his power to get rid of it. That's the only way I can see Triple H leaving at this point. Those are the only two scenarios. And I don't know if either scenario is going to happen, if I'm being honest with you. So it could happen, but it will take something major to rip that Band-Aid off at this point. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But yep, that's the whole situation going on here with these two. We'll leave it there at that. Let's jump over here to kind of a more fun story. I guess fun, depending on how you're looking at it. There was a debate on the internet here that happened not too long ago about who deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of Disney Channel stars. And this all goes back to Complex magazines. They did like one of their Twitter sites. Complex Pop Culture is the name of this whole thing, and they put out who they think should be on the Disney Channel Mount Rushmore. Here's who they selected: Raven Simone, Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, and Zendaya. So in the history of the Disney Channel, which I think has been about 30 years now, these are the four they put up there for the Mount Rushmore. Here's what I say to this, because as someone who grew up with the very early stages of my era of Disney Channel was before they even started trying to make starlets out of Disney stars. Like, I remember the era of like the famous Jet Jackson, So Weird, The Jersey, Bug Juice. There was another show, like an ambulance show, can't remember the exact name off the top of my head, but that's the era of Disney Channel that I remember. Then you had a couple of shows that were hit shows like Even Stevens and Lizzie McGuire. Now, noticeably, a lot of people were pissed off that Hilary Duff was left off this list. We'll get to her here in a second. But that was kind of like the last real bit of like good Disney Channel where it was all about kind of like family related shows. Then you get to Raven Simone. Now, I will say this. I don't have a problem with Raven Simone's placing on here for this one reason. If you guys are old enough to remember, in the early stages of the Disney Channel, they had this thing called the 65 episode rule, which meant that no matter how popular a show was, it only got 65 episodes. Once 65 episodes is up, the show's done. And that's how it was. That's why Even Stevens only lasted a few years. Lizzie McGuire, the Jet Jackson, the Jury, all those shows only lasted a 65 episode limit. That's So Raven, that they believe debuted in 2003, was such a popular show. Disney removed the 65 episode rule to keep that show going for several years afterwards. I think they did well over 100 episodes with that one. So that was pretty significant for the direction of the channel. However, that also led Disney to the creative decision that, hey, you know what? We can make starlets on this network based on the people like Hilary Duff and Raven Simone. That led you to essentially the era of Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, where they were trying to make superstars out of Disney and the whole thing, right? I don't know why Zendaya's on this list because I can't remember what show she was actually on at any point in time whatsoever, but for whatever reason they put her on this Mount Rushmore, which is fucking laughable to me. But there's other people who have been associated. A lot of people forget Jake Paul was on a Disney Channel show not too long ago before he became like the internet divine YouTube guy. Like he was on the show there. So it's like, well, where's he like on this list here as well? So this is a very interesting topic, and I want to start this one off of Cider because from people from our generation, it's kind of hard to look at like a list and be like, well, who's the top tier? Because like I can see the argument from Miley Cyrus, obviously. Like I said, I probably wouldn't argue against her being on there. Selena Gomez, there's an argument to make about her too, but it's like I get why they would be there, but at the same time, it's like that's not my era of Disney Channel. That's not the Disney Channel I remember. I had long stopped watching Disney Channel before all of those girls even came along to the scene. It's like, so when I'm talking about my era of Disney Channel, we're thinking of like the girl who played Xenon. We're thinking about like, you know, all the Disney Channel original movies. Christy Carlson Romano was a big thing on the Disney Channel for a while. She was Kim Possible and Even Stevens. So people just completely like threw her off the list. Like there's so many people I would put over the more popular girls, but for the younger generation, that's all they know. So where do you kind of line here with this Disney Mount Rushmore talk?
History began when the Zoomers were born.
Yeah.
We all spawned in at 1994. That's when we all spawned in. We were just previously Pixels before that, not the movie. But the Mount Rushmore thing is just ridiculous. This is always going to cause conflict because any decided group is going to be one that's good and three others that are not. And that's always going to be the case. Is you can't get three people to agree on a pizza topping. All right, that's the rule. It's a joke, you know, however you want to take it, the adage, if you will. And so that's how we're going to keep approaching this, is that anytime they put out these, do you think is the best, we're going to get into these conflicts between the generations. Because quite obviously, like, if you could probably snap back the Disney Channel even further to like the late 80s, probably. Was it around then? Probably, right? Yeah.
Which one?
The Disney Channel?
I think Disney started somewhere in like the early 90s. Like the actual Disney... No, you're right. I think it was late 80s because I do remember, if you guys remember the very first pilot season of Good Morning Miss Bliss, that was the show that predated Saved by the Bell. So it was Good Morning. I want to say that was on the Disney Channel or some variation of it. So it may have been somewhere like late 80s, early 90s. I remember it from the early 90s, but it may have been a few years before that.
1983.
Wow.
Okay, so yeah, it was even longer than that then.
Yeah, and so I want to say that wasn't that one that Johnny Depp was the heartthrob in. His like teenage one was on Disney Channel.
21 Jump Street.
That was a Fox. That was a Fox
Yeah.
show.
I don't know. And that's just what it is that...
Well, you guys could go even further if you wanted to talk about Disney stars. Nobody mentions the new Mickey Mouse Club, which spawned Ryan Gosling, Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Britney Spears.
As I like to call it, the CIA show, because that's exactly
so that they have all been, had much more. Well, almost all of them have had much more successful careers, even though a couple of them have gone insane. But they are tower over someone like Selena Gomez, who was last seen thrashing about a bed, having an epileptic fit on Emilia Perez, which is one of the great films of the 20th century, 21st century. So how far back do you want to go?
I mean, I think it's interesting though, because the whole timeline with this for me gets screwed up because I actually did not get access to, and I guess whatever cable package we had, but I didn't get access to the Disney Channel until the late 90s. And when it and I could have sworn it premiered then, but maybe that was their rebranding. I don't know. But the point is, I thought it was like Disney cartoons. Like that's why I was like looking forward to it, because it was like a competitor for Cartoon Network or something, and it was like or Boomerang. It's more like content for kids and
no, it had that. It
Over
had
time.
cartoons. It had,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it had cartoons. I do remember things like there was Good Morning Mickey, which was a morning show. They had Donald Duck Presents. They had Masterpiece Theater. I can go way back, guys. I could, they had. Yeah, I lived it. I also know that they had original movies, but they were not focused on making stars. They did show older Disney movies, kind of like what Disney Plus is now. They would have their older movies. Like I saw the original Freaky Friday ad nauseum, and I drove my mom absolutely crazy that she was forced to watch it over and over and over and over again. But I loved it. And same with Not Quite Human, which should get a DVD release. Come on, or put it on Disney Plus. Not Quite Human, that was a great movie. So yes, it started out that way, and then they started, like Jacob was saying, they started doing original shows, and then eventually devolved to trying to make stars out of all of these people. Some that did not deserve to be stars, some that were ruined by being there. I mean, I could name you my 4, if we're not counting the original Mickey Mouse. I mean, the new Mickey Mouse Club team, which probably has had more success than most of these other people. But I mean, I could name real quick, just making a list: Zac Efron, Zendaya, Miley Cyrus, and David Henry. Zac Efron has had a pretty successful career.
Zac Efron was
he was
Disney
in the
movies, though. He's not Disney Channel.
Well, it's on the it's on the cusp. He was known primarily for that. I mean, that's how he started. That's what launched him.
High School Musical?
High School Musical, yes. Which I did not have a birthday themed party based around that. That's a lie. That never happened. And then Zendaya. I mean, as much as people may not like her, she has had a pretty successful career. Emmy winner, youngest Emmy winner. There at Dune, she can open a film. Miley Cyrus, again, someone that I don't really care for. She has had a successful career, and I put in David Henry from The Wizards of Waverly Place only because he's one of the few people who has not gone insane from the Disney Channel, and he seems to be relatively normal. And he was young Ronald Reagan, so there's that.
So I will say this. Apparently, Zendaya was on 2 different shows in the Disney Channel in the 2010s. She was on Shake It Up, which is the live action show. And then I believe she was on another show called Casey Undercover, which is another series too, which I've never heard of. Let me rephrase that. I've heard of Shake It Up. I've never watched it. I've never heard of this other one. But maybe that's the reason why so many people like Zendaya. Maybe that's why she keeps being shoved down everyone's throat, because they all know her from the Disney shows.
Also, Bella Thorne, who's an absolute crazy person, just in general, was a Disney Channel star. So there you go. But I don't know if I just came in a little after Jacob did with this, but like there are the Disney Channel original movies. Like there's a handful of those that I saw. I liked Even Stevens. It's actually where I first saw Shia LaBeouf, who, by the way, would be on my Mount Rushmore, just because I still like Shia LaBeouf. He is crazy. However, I think that he uses that craziness like in his acting, and he's pretty good. Like he's a pretty good like crazy fucker. I mean, he did the kind of embarrassing like anti-Trump nonsense, but since then I don't know. To me, I still respect him as an actor because he brings it, even if he actually is insane and is guilty of that domestic violence case that he's gonna deal with later this year. But he's on there, but I mean, there's stuff like Johnny Tsunami, which is like literally like Out Cold, but a Disney version. You know what I mean? Where like the jock, the jock, or not but the preppy skiers against like the snowboarders, and it's a stupid class. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's very basic stuff, but it's also stuff they don't make anymore. They don't make these kind of humanistic, simplistic, earnest human stories.
Well, there was I think there was an original Disney movie called a Friendship in Vienna, which dealt with the Holocaust, or at least in the beginning of the Holocaust, of a Jewish family that's trying to leave. I don't think they make those types of things anymore.
And yeah, because this is the problem. I talked about this a little earlier too. It's like me, Rob, and Cider, our generation, we started watching Disney right at the tail end of like a creative shift for the entire network, right? Because like I said, if you like try to watch like mid 90s, late 90s Disney Channel stuff, it looks like it's not even the same network versus the stuff that you would see 10, 20 years later anymore. Like that's how different it was. But I think, like I said, with the success of Lizzie McGuire, then Raven Simone, it became let's try to make new superstars out of, our Disney stars. And then here's this is kind of the elephant in the room here with this entire situation here. I'm gonna put this back up. Is that, we mentioned a couple of names here, and here's the thing that we need to address. The overwhelming majority of former Disney stars are legitimately insane now. Like, the overwhelming majority. Like, you see Raven Simone there. She wasn't bald when she was on Natural Raven 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever the case was. She wasn't there now. Miley Cyrus, don't really need to say much about that one. Selena Gomez is a mess of a human being. Zendaya, we'll see. She's held up fairly well compared to the others. I mean, compared to the others, she's
got Tom Holland. She's got Tom Holland.
But you start rolling down the list of names here, and I mean, like I said, Shia LaBeouf could be a strong argument for him being on the Mount Rushmore. He's insane too. Bella Thorne or Orlando Brown, Christy Carson Romano crashed out pretty hard after Disney went out of the thing. I mean, all those we just mentioned. Demi Lovato is a big example. We mentioned all these people from the Mickey Mouse Club. Have you seen Britney Spears recently? I mean, the overwhelming majority of people from this era have either just gone away from obscurity, and let's just say they probably got out the best, if we're being honest. Right? So like, if you never hearing from any of these people again, they probably got out great. Everyone else seems like whatever repressed trauma they've been dealing with did not manifest. In the best way.
Some of them weren't all the Jonases Disney stars.
They were Disney movies stars at some point, and
hit and miss there.
Yeah. But I mean, like I say, if you look back at a lot of these people, especially in the course of like 25 years, like it is not a good sight for like, put it this way, 3 of the 4 people on the screen right now are not having a good time at this very moment.
I do want to point this out because, I will say the majority of child stars, I don't want to say it's the majority of them are fucked up, but it just seems that way because so many of them are fucked up. I will say this. I saw Kieran Culkin, who is a child star. He was at Home Alone with his brother on Broadway this past weekend, and he was great. But, that seems to be the exception. Elijah Wood seems to be the exception. It's not the rule. And so I don't know I don't know specifically what it is about Disney and Nickelodeon where you do programming with kids for kids where all this inappropriate shit happens. And you have to literally ask, where are the fucking parents? Anyway, I'm
it's basically, if we're being real about it, I mean, especially towards that 2000s era, it basically was a dinner bell for predators. I mean, that's really what it came down to. Yeah. So,
but I would just say that if you're going to put these 4 women, and it's all women, which I think is very sexist, but if you're going to put these 4 women on the Mount Rushmore, for me, to get that, you have to have had a pretty successful post-child star career, something like maybe one of Kieran Culkin or Jodie Foster. None of these women, to my knowledge, has made that kind of cultural impact. Well, Miley Cyrus, but not in the best way. Zendaya, yes, she's a name. I don't know whether people are going to go, oh yes, that's a future Kennedy Center honoree there. And same with Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez was absolutely dreadful in Emilia Perez? Have we forgotten just how awful she was? Where we weren't even sure if she was
she
supposed to be a
wasn't good
Mexican
in anything
or
else.
Yeah, I had to limp my way through that movie. I barely
Yeah.
like I didn't want to finish it.
So
How
Selena
bad.
Gomez's popularity came from being basically a sarcastic teen girl on a Disney show, which led to her having a quote unquote singing career for a little while. And then primarily she was known for either being Justin Bieber's girlfriend and struggling with alcohol issues for the next several years after the fact. I mean,
well, did she have a disease? Wasn't
Yeah,
she
now
like
she's
that too.
relatable because she's, not perfect sized and has acne problems.
Well, then she got heat because, like I said, she had to get a kidney transplant at one point, and then some poor actress chick gave her a kidney, and then apparently they haven't been on speaking terms ever since. And it was like, that's kind of a rough one. I don't know what to tell you there, buddy.
That's harsh, but no. I mean, what? I know she has a. Wasn't she also on the Barney show?
Yeah, as a little kid, that was like years before Disney.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, with Selena Gomez, she has a very passionate fan base. That is true. There were people who were absolutely
Somebody said why.
screaming.
Yeah,
I
why?
don't know. I don't know. There were people who were absolutely screaming when she was not nominated for Emilia Perez. And like, but why would you nominate her for that? Why would you nominate Emilia Perez for anything other than the Razzies? But she doesn't have that big name. She's not a big name. I don't think you would open a film. I don't say Selena Gomez will open your film. Zendaya maybe,
but Selena
but she's
Gomez,
more
like I
the
said, she's
product.
never been known for like Selena Gomez is not like an actress, quote unquote. Like she's never been known for any acting roles whatsoever. Like I said, she was known for the Disney Channel. She had somewhat of a successful music career for a little bit off the hills of the Disney Channel, but then she's really been a tabloid star in between that. She's never been in anything where everyone's like, oh yeah, she's a great actress. It's like she's never been that.
That's been the way since the company was founded. When they went into television, you had people, you had them on TV, and then they would do what they did in the past. They would gauge the popularity of certain performers, and then you would tailor projects to them. Going back, this actually is before my time. Going back to Annette Funicello, who was on the original Mickey Mouse Club, they got her into a little series of her own. They got her into a musical career, although by her own admission she couldn't sing, and they also put her in Disney movies. But that was because the audience liked her. This is not what has happened with the current batch of these Mount Rushmore types. They kind of wanted to force them and create instant stars. I don't know if that was what happened. And Miley Cyrus, I get that she wanted to move away from Hannah Montana, but she kind of went to a big extreme there into just, I don't know what she turned into.
And she's another one who, like, Miley Cyrus has never been known for being a great actress either. Like I said, she was a Disney star, got popular there, went on to do a music career, was successful for a while. And then, like I said, she went the over-sexualized route. Then when that burned up, now she sounds like a 70-year-old smoker, and I believe she's only like 31.
She sounds like a fucking 60-year-old, like, cocktail waitress at
she sounds like one of those
era.
old women in like Dallas, Texas, who sits there in the slot smoking cigarettes all day.
Her voice has gotten raspier. Her voice has gotten raspier. It's always been kind of raspy.
And now her
it wasn't that bad that years ago.
Hurley. So what the hell is going on with that family?
I'm sorry, what?
Billy Ray Cyrus and Elizabeth Hurley are an item now.
Oh my God! I guess ever since Hugh Grant ran off with that hooker, it just completely destroyed her, her self-confidence.
All you guys talking about your Hillary Duffs and your Selena Gomez's and your Zendayas, y'all forgot. I don't like using y'all. Okay, so you know it's serious. Y'all forgot.
I'm from
Power
Texas.
Rangers used to be part of Disney. All right, that's for real. Okay.
Don't
worry. On my Mount Rushmore, well, you'll never know because they wear helmets.
Yeah, Cider, I'm from Texas. We say y'all all the time. So
I know. I'm up in Maine. We shouldn't. We are not a place that should say y'all. It annoys the hell out of me when Mainers say it. It's like, no, we are on the wrong side of the Mason-Dixon for that. Don't do that.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say here. And I mean,
this is in Maryland, by the way. Mason-Dixon.
Like I say, it really just depends on what era of Disney that you came up with. And I think people who have more of a more romanticized vision of what Disney is or was or used to be is probably in the younger demographic, which is why you see a younger demographic represented in that Mount Rushmore. Like I said, none of those shows appeal to me at all, but then again, I'm not the target demographic for the obvious reasons for those shows. If you want to go back and watch real Disney Channel, go back and, well, you can't find it on Disney Plus because they don't have it because they don't want to pay the sports people the rights, but go find old episodes of like The Jersey, go find So Weird, go find Jet Jackson. Those shows were far superior. Go back and watch Brink and like Stepsister for Planet Weird.
I would go even further. I mean, I would go even further. Go see if you could find something like Friendship in Vienna.
Go watch Susie Q. You remember Susie Q? Cider, you have to remember Susie Q.
Oh, I didn't own that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
It was literally the first time that anyone saw Amy Jo Johnson, and it was like, wait, she's not a Power Ranger in this? Like, what the hell?
The only original Disney Channel original movie I actually saw myself in was this movie called The Other Me. There's one it had one of the Lawrence brothers in it, where he magically cloned himself, so he didn't have to like do his homework or like any of the responsibilities. And
like,
then like
for kids.
His parents loved the clone more. And it was just like, what message are you trying to sell kids with this one? What the hell?
Don't clone yourself. You'll be in trouble. Yeah. The other thing about this is that the Disney Channel also had like Halloween Town. And a lot of people don't like to talk about the Halloween Town movies because they got freaked out by them or whatever. I don't know. I love them to death because they're all about this dumb little family that's doing their very best against these magical sitcom discomforts. They're not even villains and challenges, or just discomforts they have to deal with, and I love it.
Why would people freak out about Debbie Reynolds?
I think it's more to do with like the characters that are in Halloween Town, because they went ahead, and I don't know who they hired for the prop maker, but they went ahead and made things just that extra leap real. Like the taxi driver is like a skin of flesh away from being the Crypt Keeper. And I think that freaks people out that he's just so like an actual skeleton talking to you. It's not like there's no animatronics about it, really. It's puppetry, you know?
Did they do a crossover with, what was it, Twitches? Was it Tia and Tamara Mari?
I only know of 3 Halloween Town movies, and everyone thinks they're lame because nothing really happens in them. But I just like it that it's a family and they're doing family stuff.
I always liked Halloween Town. Actually, growing up,
I guess I'm admittedly a little older. I still love High School Musical, and I love all. Well, no, I like the first 2. Didn't like the third one.
That was made for my generation, and I refused to watch it. So
look, I was too old for High School Musical, so I know for a fact Rick was too damn old to be watching High School Musical. But that's besides the point.
And did not have a High School Musical themed birthday party. That is not true.
Why it didn't freak me out was at the same time I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street and Hollow Man and like these really fucked up horror movies. So Halloween Town was just a fun like reprieve from actually fucked up movies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I know it's not Disney, but I was into Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was my. It
was a good show. Yeah, it was a good show.
Well, we had our fun here. We got to go to topics that are far more serious to finish this show. We're gonna have to dig deep here for this one, because I know the story is technically about Pope Francis is dead, and I get that that's the story, but that's not really the story that's going on here. So I'll go ahead and break this down a little bit here, because some of you guys who have listened to my Bible ins probably know exactly where I'm going with this one. But here's this here. Pope died on, what was it, Monday? I want to say it was Monday officially.
Yes.
Francis. Officially. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and argue about whether Pope, he died like 2 months ago. They only just now announced it, because I think that that's just completely irrelevant to the greater topic of this whole conversation here. But yes, Pope Francis is officially dead. He passed away on Monday. He had been dealing with serious health issues for basically the last 2 months. He was hospitalized. They were basically saying, hey, it's touch and go. We don't really know where this is going to go. It's probably not going to end well. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like he was making a miraculous recovery. And then he had even met with J.D. Vance apparently on Sunday during Easter. And then literally overnight, like, oh, he died. And he was basically saying that, at this point that he died from complications of a stroke, which put him in a coma, which led to his heart to fail. The timeline of all this is kind of like, well, did he just pass out and die? Because, like I said, how did he go from meeting with JD Vance completely fine at one point, and then all of a sudden all the health issues just like snap of the fingers?
They
Like,
pumped
we
him
don't
full
know.
of drugs. I mean, if you saw his face, it looked very, very round. So I just assumed that they pumped him with drugs to, keep him for that meeting, because JD Vance is a Catholic convert.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to him here in a second, but yeah, he was obviously Pope Francis is a guy who's championed in the progressive side of the Catholic Church and kind of hated in the conservative side of the Catholic Church, because obviously he pushed a lot of issues like the critiques of capitalism, climate change, support of LGBTQ issues and stuff like that. So that's why he was more embraced in more of the left-wing circles, who were always hypercritical of Roman Catholicism, but kind of had that one foot in, one foot out. And then, of course, you have your based and red pill conservative Catholics out there who hated him because, he supported all these things and whatnot. So there's kind of a civil war happening here at the moment between who's going to become the next pope. But yeah, he passed away. It was at 7:39 this morning. Bishop of Rome Francis returned home to the Father. I don't know about that, but we'll talk about that later. He's entire life dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. Again, suffered from chronic lung disease, had one of his lungs were removed as a young man, has a respiratory crisis that developed into a double pneumonia. He spent obviously 40 days in a long hospitalization. This was going back to February, and then he recently passed away. So Pope's dead. Doesn't really matter how you feel about Francis at the end of the day. He's gone. Here's the situation that we're at right now, and here's where it's kind of concerning, right? Because if you guys recall, about a month ago, I literally did an episode regarding this very issue, and I said, will the next pope be the last pope? Now, if you guys want the full context of what I was talking about in that episode, I very much implore you to go back and watch it now, especially before they end up choosing who the next pope is going to be. Because what I did there is that, based on everything that I've been talking about on the Bible Lens show regarding end times prophecy, Catholicism, Islam, Judaism, Israel, all this stuff, right? For those of you guys who don't know, I very much on the belief that the Antichrist and the false prophet of Revelation in the Bible are going to be Islamic figures, and I've talked about this in great detail. As a result of this, I also believe that the harlot of Babylon is a representation of the Roman Catholic Church in the end times, right? Which means that at some point there's going to be some kind of a union, temporary it may be, between the Antichrist and the Roman Catholic Church, which means that the next pope, or the pope who would be in charge during that time period, probably would have to be someone who is very favorable of the religion of Islam. So like I said, there's two thoughts of thinking here, and I'm kind of lead you down to both. There's a lot of people online kind of in our sphere who are like, this guy is the person who should be the next pope. This is Cardinal Robert Serra. Basically, he's a guy who's run down his beliefs. He's one of the, he's going to be the based pope. You know what I'm saying? He's one of these type of guys. Here's a few quotes from him. It's like, the West has denied its Christian roots. The tree without the roots dies. He's been spoken out very publicly about anti-immigration, speaking out against Francis. And as a result of this, many people are appointing him to be the front runner, or at least one of the front runners to be the new pope. Everyone's kind of rallying around him. Now, if you have this ideal that, somehow you're going to reclaim the Roman Catholic Church and it's going to change and it's going to be based in red pill, that's probably the way you're looking at things. I'm looking at things from a more biblical perspective here, which leads me to this guy who I believe is the actual front runner, or let's put it this way. If you ask me who I believe the next pope could be based on the events that are going to unfold, based on what we talked about here, this is the guy I would absolutely look out for right now. Now, he is not considered a front runner at this moment. There are multiple guys ahead of him. So at the moment, he seems like a long shot. His name is Matteo Zuppi. We've talked about him on the past episode of the Bible Lens. He's about almost 70 years old. He's from Rome, Italy. And the reason why I levy him to be the guy that we should probably be looking out for is because, as I said, if I am correct about the Antichrist being a Islamic figure, then you would need someone there who is going to be very favorable towards Islam. The guy I just mentioned beforehand, Robert Serra, he is obviously not that guy. He's very critical of Islam, and if this is all going to line up here, I don't think he would be the guy leading the Roman Catholic Church in charge. But this is a article here from a few months back, and it's very, very interesting. Now, this is obviously before the health issues and all these things, but I read this and I was like, this is not good if you know where this is going. This guy, who's one of the people who could be the next pope, basically started an ambitious multi-faith house project for Islam, Judaism, and Christianity in Italy's communist-dominated province of Bologna. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, the name of that city. But he's the current president of the Italian Bishops' Conference here. And basically what he was trying to do, this is just several months ago, he wanted to create a house to encounter dialogue between religions and cultures. This is one of his quotes here. This multi-house project in Bologna is yet another house of cards based on a fantasy, wishful thinking, willful ignorance of Islam and jihad. Very important to read this here. The multi-faith project says here that it has been inspired by Pope Francis' own pet project, which is the Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi, and is being led by the the heads of the Abrahamic religion communities in Bologna and other places in Italy as well. Essentially, this is a unionized effort to bring the religions of Christianity, quote unquote, which is really Catholicism in the context here, Islam and Judaism together in a course of almost creating a one world religion, which should terrify you if you know the reality of what that means here. So the reason why I point him out, and is probably the worst case scenario, is that if we are talking about knocking on the door of this time period that we call the tribulation here, this guy would fit the bill perfectly for the guy who would essentially embrace the Antichrist, create this union between Catholicism and Islam, and then we're off to the races of the book of Revelation becoming true somewhere in the very, very near future. And I know that's terrifying for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, you just threw a lot of information at me and I don't really understand it. There's a lot to this story that I can't really go on to in the context of the time frame we have for this show, which is why I said I go into this in far more detail in those other episodes. Go and watch it on your own time here. But all I can say here is this: for the next 3 to 4 weeks, the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church are going to be meeting with one another. They're going to be deciding, okay, who's next after Francis? Who do we pick next? There's a lot of people, names have been thrown out there as front runners. People are rooting for a lot of people. I'm just saying, following biblical logic here, and I'm just going to make a very, very blunt statement. If this guy, Matteo, ends up becoming the next pope, now would probably be the time to repent, because I don't believe that if this happens, I don't think there's that much time between where we are right now to all that scary stuff in Revelation actually happening in real time. And that's kind of my thoughts about it. Now, that's my thoughts, my opinion. I am open to being completely wrong about this. It may be some other guy. You're just like, well, it's not the guy that you said. And like, hey, look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I just have a strong feeling that this may be where we're leading to, and we're only going to know in the course of the next few weeks. So I'm going to start here with Cider. We did talk a little bit about this before we went live here, so I want to expound on this a little bit more. First, your thoughts about the passing of Francis, kind of the perception of Francis, and what's possibly next if this is actually where we're going here.
He was the meme pope. Meme pope. You know, they didn't really, guy didn't get to say much. Really, a lot of interpretation or a lot was said on his behalf, and he just kind of was like, yeah, sure, that's good, or to that effect anyway. We had him say it was a-okay to bless gay friendships, and that was a neat backdoor into blessing gay relationships. So you could get away with that because they said they're friends. Well, yeah, they are. They're butt buddies. Of course they're friends.
Yeah.
So they're so good friends, they sleep in the same bed. How about that? But the situation that you find yourself in at the end of this, though, as an outsider, is that that's too many popes in a lifetime. We've been through 3 popes in our lifetime, gentlemen. That's too many popes. You don't go through popes that quick. And that's bad. And now we're on to number 4. And
it's almost as if the wages of sin is death.
You know, I gotta tell you, you should probably keep JD Vance far away from this next pope, just for safekeeping. You know, if you want to make sure. The other thing about this that bothers me is that this was a pope that allowed the Pachamama to be displayed inside the Vatican, and that was a South American fertility goddess or something like that. And it was
pagan
a statue,
god, basically.
Pagan god, yeah, and brought it into the Vatican, and a parishioner grabbed a hold of it against the church's witches at this point, drug it out to the river's edge and tossed it into the river, destroying it. And that's where it belonged. I mean, that's not, you don't do that. And this guy was like cool with that. The other problem is that we're looking at a Catholic church that convenes themselves inside of a giant snake's head that also contains a bizarre picture of Jesus rising from hell. And it's like, that's weird. Why would Jesus doesn't come from there?
What picture?
It's the big metal-y thing, right? Where it's like all this weird stuff, and then there's demons and things. It's got all
you ever seen the picture of like the Vatican like little stage thing? I'll get it up here because there's.
And then like,
you're talking about the
Sistine
Chapel.
No, that's not it. This is a statue.
No.
This is a statue. That's not it. The Sistine's fine. It's the statue that I don't know when they made it. It's like some big bronze thing. And like Jesus is rising up toward the heavens and all these other angels are moving around them. But it's just such a hellacious looking thing. There's no beauty to it whatsoever. It is unnervingly disturbing in its form.
Well, if it was made, certainly in the 20th century, it probably is, because everything past Guernica is pretty much garbage. But this is
what he's talking about here.
Okay, let's take a look.
Yeah, this thing, right?
Yeah, this.
Oh, that is, I believe, an audience room that was built probably, after Second Vatican. Vatican II has a lot to answer for. So
it does look like kind of like a souls in a fire. Doesn't it kind of look like that? Like if you were kind of looking at a visual representation,
and Jesus looks like he's on fire.
Hell, if you were looking at a visual representation of hell, this would probably be what it would look like.
And correct me if I'm wrong. This is supposed to be Jesus rising to heaven. Is this statue is supposed to be, right? Or am I misinterpreting it that it's supposed to be demons?
It's quite unattractive.
It reminds me of Constantine, actually, where Keanu Reeves like, reaching up and all those like demons or souls are trying to drag him down.
Yeah,
but yeah, I really have nothing to say here except that I've seen the movie Dogma, which made fun of the Catholic Church, and I saw it when I was 10. It came out when I was 10. But everything I've ever heard about the Catholic Church has pretty much been bad. And look, Pope Francis was, I don't know. I think he's viewed generally as a positive figure for everybody outside of Catholicism. Like if you're not a Catholic or you're, you know what I mean, you're a very liberal Catholic, you probably liked Pope Francis. I know a lot of Catholics who did not like him at all. So, and again, I think the Catholic Church has its own problems and issues and history. And like, I'm sure you could have a podcast just on that or multiple podcasts on that. But yeah, in terms of the real life machinations of what's going on, I'm sure they exist. I'm sure like we saw in Conclave, there's a lot of politics and, conjecture and crap that goes into it. But I have no clue about it whatsoever.
I'll say that Pope Francis, for the idea that he was this kind of radical leftist nut who embraced liberation theology, there were certain aspects that he would not bend on. He, just flat out said, no, there will not be female ordination. No, we will not accept abortion under any circumstances. So there were certain elements that stayed within the traditional Catholic view. Now, the next pope, it's going to tell us which way the Church General or the cardinals are going. They picked Benedict XVI because he was closer to John Paul II in terms of theology and worldview. Once the Pope Benny left, they decided to go to the opposite side, which is Francis, and he comes from the Jesuits, who are more progressive, who want to have like this kind of connection to the world. It's hard to say. The next pope, whoever they pick, will show us whether they are going more to the right or more to the left theologically and socially and politically. Now, we all know that they're going to end up picking a transgender pope like we saw in Conclave, so we don't have to worry about that. Well, because they're going to reject the crazy right winger.
A couple of things here. One, and a quick little shout out here to Mirades80, who super chatted us $4. Says, thanks, great chat, guys. Very much appreciated. A couple of things here. We talk about predictive programming a lot. We'll get to this here when we talk about this other topic here in just a minute, right? And it just so happens there was a movie released in the last few months that was about a pope who died, who was a progressive pope, and we go into a conclave where the Roman Catholic Church has to find this new pope, and there's a lot of backstabbing and all this controversy behind the scenes, and they ended up going with the most progressive pope they can possibly go towards, and obviously that pope was transgender or intersex, however you want to call it, whatnot, but that's basically what it was like. And Hollywood gave it the award treatment. Didn't win a whole bunch of awards, but it did win some significant ones, right? And here we are just a couple months later, and and here we are just a couple months later, and we're reliving this situation in real life. Now, I will say this, and I noted this when I did my biblical review of that movie a few months back. It's not a bad movie. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's illogical, and it's written by people who have no concept of religion whatsoever, but it's not bad. Cinematography is great, but this is the one thing that I noted in that film, and this is something else that we should point out here. Leslie Tarkin even mentioned this too. Zuppi, the guy's name here, he's also has ties with Jesuits, and the reason why he's maybe considered on the progressive side of things is that he'll be considered kind of a more progressive line successor to Pope Francis. So essentially, if you want more Pope Francis or someone that's even more progressive than Pope Francis, he would be that guy. But rewind on that point for a second. One of the things that I noted in that film is that when you see the colors of the cardinals and the archbishops of the Roman Catholic Church, and I get it, those are the real colors, but there was a lot of purple and there was a lot of scarlet in that film. And if you guys don't know, the colors for the Roman Catholic Church primarily are red and scarlet, purple and scarlet. Scarlet is the color of the cardinals, and then the purple is the color of the archbishops. I point this out to people all the time because I'm telling you, when the Bible says something, it's not done by coincidence. And it says in Revelation 17:4 very clearly, the woman, being the harlot, was arrayed in purple and scarlet colors, decked in gold and precious stones, having the golden cup in her hand, full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Again, there's so many dead-on clues about who this entity is. The purple, the scarlet, the golden cup, the significance of the golden cup, the blood that is in the golden cup, the precious stones, the pearls. It's like literally the location, which everyone knows is Rome. It's hitting it right on the head exactly who this entity is, which is why I feel very comfortable in the fact, and I know this is going to upset a lot of people, but you're going to have to accept this at some point. The Roman Catholic Church is not the good guys in this story. And I know there's a lot of, like I said, based in red pill conservative people out there that's like, oh no, we're going to win it back because we're going to win back the West. Okay, enjoy that fantasy if you want to. The problem is that you cannot redeem or reform something that is inherently evil. You can't do it. And the more that you try to do so, it's not going to work out. And let me point this out here too. I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, what about the Protestants? If we're talking about people like Luther and Calvin and that whole camp, here's what I have to say to them. The reformers moved out of the Roman Catholic Church, but they took the furniture with them, which means that they're not that much better in the grand scheme of things if we're being completely honest with ourselves here. So, like I said, I can only tell you guys what I've read. I can only tell you guys what I'm seeing in the world right now. And like I said, I am more than willing to be wrong on this. I gave you two names of people who was like, if these two individuals are become pope, it will probably be time to worry. I could be completely off base. Maybe they do elect the base black guy and we have to reset our timeline because it's not lining up properly here. Maybe that's the case. Maybe not. Maybe this is kind of the time where if this is happening, God is setting the stage for something that is not going to be enjoyable for the overwhelming amount of people who are still in a state of unbelief. And I will leave it at that for now until we find out exactly who the Pope is. Now, if we find out who the Pope is, we'll cover it here in a couple of weeks, and I can pretty much tell you guys that the end of the world is happening, but we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. Any final thoughts on this topic before we move on to our next one?
Well, I'm not quite convinced that this Zeppi person is going to be the next pope, because they haven't had an Italian pope in like well over in our lifetime. From John Paul, Polish, Ratzinger, German, Francis, Argentine. So I don't know if they'll actually go back. I don't know if they'll go back.
But I will say this, and like I said, I'm more than willing to accept being wrong, but I think the significance that this particular individual is in fact from Rome leads even more credence that, okay, now we have the Roman Catholic Church being led by someone from Rome. Rome is directly referencing, like I said, I could be crazy or could be dead on the nose about what's about to happen here.
Well, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying that. So, and there are so many other factors. We could have someone just found as a compromise candidate. John Paul I, I believe, was a compromise candidate. And of course, he just died 30 some odd days later, murdered by the mob, as we saw in The Godfather 3. So we don't know.
I haven't seen that, so thank you for spoiling. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm
his daughter gets murdered too. All right, just
yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's
and the audience applauded. Apparently,
everybody hates Sofia Coppola. Yeah,
yes,
I just hate her for being a bad director. But
anyway,
yeah,
we don't know. We don't know who someone could come out. It could be, like I said, a compromise candidate. We don't know, so anything's possible. All I'll say is that we'll see which direction the Church General is going based on whom they pick. Are they going to pick someone more like Ratzinger, or are they going to pick someone more like Bergoglio? We saw that in the two popes, although the two popes was very unfairly cited because it was very pro Francis, to where you thought Benny was literally insane and out of it. I'll just say that we don't know. We'll find out, but just keep your eye on whom they pick. That'll tell you which way the direction's going.
All I will say is this. There's a lot of nonsense news out there. Me and Cider were talking about this. The stories that people out there are hyper focused on that really don't matter at the end of the day. This is probably a story that you should keep your eye on because, like I said, we could be literally watching biblical prophecy unfold here. And I do have the link to that on the chat for you guys to check out on your own time. But until then, I want to go over here to this topic here. Jordan Peele is producing another movie, and I know some of you guys just audibly groaned, but that is happening. It's a movie called Him, and we just got done a second ago talking about a movie where it's like we see these predictive programming movies all the time where it's like they're telling you exactly what's going to happen, but you're not paying attention because you're not taking it seriously. Then it happens, and I mean, like, how do we? So there's a story here. Here's I'm going to show you guys the trailer. Here's the story for this film. A young athlete is on his way to the top. And he's meeting with essentially a guy who I guess is his handler, a trusted, mentor, whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, you're great. You're the next big thing. But how bad do you really want it? Are you ready to sell your soul to obtain, this level? And this is essentially what the film is about. It's called Him. Here's the trailer for you. It's only a couple minutes long. We'll watch it here.
Do you want this? I said, do you want this? If you want to transcend the game, you have to dig deep. Your mind and your body have to be in sync. Talent is how hard you're willing to work. No days off. No sleep. We grind. I'm never good enough. I'm never good enough. That's how great people think. So you're gonna have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? This ain't a fucking game, man. This is everything. Do you want this? What are you willing to sacrifice? and show me.
So that's the new movie that's coming out whenever the hell. Cause, I didn't bother to figure out the whole thing, but you guys get the gist of this film here. It's a sports horror movie because sure, why not? When does it come out? It comes out in September 9th. That's an interesting date. I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, it comes out September the 19th of this year. Marlon Wayans is in the movie. Julia Fox, who is a legitimate witch, by the way, just in case you guys didn't know that, is also in the film too. So that's another kind of this is suspicious here. But yeah, that's the preview for this film. It is the post, and you guys saw the imagery in the film. I will say this because a lot of people like to take this link. When you see things in like movies, television shows, music videos, case maybe, you have to understand that like people go to great details to leave certain things in there. What you see there is not there on accident. A perfect example of this is, we talked about this so many times. Remember the movie Eyes Wide Shut, the movie that allegedly what's his name, Kubrick may or may not have been killed for producing there. Every detail of the sets, of the scene, everything you're watching on screen is like autistic detail. It's there for a reason, right? And I just think to myself, like at this point, it's like, is this once again another example of kind of how our world actually works, where we take these young up and coming stars and we give them the temptation of drugs and women and fame and money, and we give them a little taste and they want more. Then when they want more, you be like, okay, but how bad do you really want it? Do you really want to be at the top? Do you want to be at the top of the top? Do you want to be part of the elite? Well, here's what you have to do to get there. Are you willing to do that, right? And we see this here all the time. Now Hollywood's making a movie about it, and I'm just thinking to myself, are we crossing the lines of reality and fiction here, or are we just going to sit here and pretend like this is all just fiction and it's totally not real? And you don't have to worry about anything. Like, what line are we at here with this whole situation? I'm going to start here with the movie guy, Rick. What's your take on the trailer? What do you think of the concept? What do you think about the film itself?
Well, I think it's a little more overt in its imagery about demonic, or dark figures. I don't want to say specifically demonic. I can think of that this is closer to my thinking of, we've seen something like this before, way back in the story of Faust, a man who was willing to sell his soul for a certain amount of time for the pleasures and the joys of life. The question will be whether the character gets punished or whether he will find redemption, salvation, what have you. This does not look like something that I would rush to see. It just doesn't appeal to me. But I don't know if it's like that over, only because it made me think of Faust. It made me think of this person who bargains with the devil or is tempted. This is the thing that the people who make these types of movies should understand. Temptation does not appear bad. That's why you lust for it. That's why you want the apple, because it's appealing. That's why you want the beautiful woman, because she's appealing and leading you into darkness. This kind of dark imagery, I don't think would work to tempt someone. You have to tempt them with beautiful things. You don't tempt someone with ugliness, at least rational people. So I don't know where they're going with this, but there are certain things here that are a little more overt in there. Oh, this is the devil, or this is darkness, than I've seen in other films. But I'm not quite convinced that it's like, like super overt to where like they're advertising Hail Satan. That's the thing about temptation. You always have to make it appealing. You have to make it attractive. Otherwise, you're going to be repelled. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
And keep in mind, that was just like, a 40-minute trailer. You saw that there was some allusion to some more darker, evil, sinister things. But yeah, we haven't seen the actual movie yet, so who knows how far exactly they go. It looked like it kind of went far enough in some aspects there.
It did. It did. And I'll say this real quick. You both have seen Sinners, so there's another one that seems to be wrapped up in this sort of darkness. I don't know what it is about these contemporary filmmakers that just love this sort of darkness and just putting it out there.
I mean, here's the thing: is like I like fucked up movies. I like, I guess, dark material, but it's almost always about reflecting, not to go in that direction, or to, that it's a mistake, that it's, I personally, if this movie is about temptation and all of that, here's the thing. You don't need to have a horror angle with this. Just watch Any Given Sunday. I mean, it's like, you have players who are supremely talented, who absolutely belong in the league. I mean, they don't need promises of whatever. Their talent gets them there. It's whether they fuck up based on, all sorts of temptations, all sorts of things they shouldn't be getting into that can divert them off their path to success. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. To me, that's more relevant to Hollywood. So I don't know if it's just Jordan Peele trying to use football and mixing his metaphors or whatever, but Hollywood is more or less the sort of like place where it's less about talent and more about what you can do for people. It's about who obviously this is a 1:40 trailer. I hope there's more to this movie than just, a football player who wants to be great, so he does whatever this guy, his mentor, tells him. And obviously there are pitfalls there too of like, think for yourself. This person doesn't have your best interests at heart. Look at the big picture. What are they getting out of it? Why are they just helping you? Like, what's that about? Who is this guy? Why does he care so much about, your career and you being great? Like all of these things. These are potentially good storytelling devices or questions to be asked, but we've seen Jordan Peele be executive producer. It's like, I mean, he's a terrible director, but he might have a worse track record.
Monkey Man,
because that also Candyman remake, which was fucking awful. And every time Jordan Peele does this, here's the thing: the movies he directs aren't nearly as heavy-handed as the movies that he executive produces. Those ones are just blatant, like, oh, Candyman is a symbolic force of, racism that black people have faced. I'm like, you're a fucking moron. You are a fucking idiot. The fact that you would try to sell that movie, the fact that somebody gave you money to make it, I am beside myself. So look, I think that potentially this could be an interesting idea for a movie. Maybe I'm just interested because of the sports angle, but yeah, you don't need to bring the occult in when it comes to athletics, I think, because at the end we talk about this all the time with female athletics and male athletics, where it's like, at the end of the day, it's like the guys that are there because they're good enough to be there. It's not like being in a play or being in a movie where it's like, oh, you did somebody a favor. Or it's like Julia Fox, right? She's in this movie. I'm pretty sure, isn't this the girl that was married to Kanye West?
She was dating Kanye West for a while, then they broke up because
her big claim to fame on the screen is being in the Safdie brothers Uncut Gems back in 2019, where she's like in lingerie and like,
and everyone realized she has a huge ass.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's what she's known for. So it's like, again, I'm not sure, like, other than, is that Marlon Wayans?
Yeah, Marlon Wayans.
Who's in this? Okay. So I mean, the movie doesn't really have a cast, and it's written and directed by somebody else. So I guess we'll just have to see when it comes out. But some of the stuff is, but it's like, I'm not sure how to take it.
This is Julia Fox, who we just mentioned here. By the way, self-admitted witch. So it's not like one of those, oh, you're calling her. No, she literally admits it, like her own will, that she's a witch. And this is just, scrolling through some of the photos on, her Instagram page. And it's just a lot of very weird, a lot of very dark related, imagery going on here. And now she just so happens to be involved in a movie that is almost explicitly about the occult, especially the occult in like the film world. So my question here is, I guess I can shoot this one off the cider, because this is a nice little alley-oop for you here, is that at some point it's like, it feels like they're telling us something, but it feels like the people who are actually listening are just few and far between. Is that kind of what you feels like here too?
Sure. That's easy enough.
Yeah, right.
You just, if you want to try and rationalize it, the big titties sell it. You're not really paying attention to what she has to say. You're more over paying attention to her gazonga galoogs. But those are kind of given out these days, so that's probably not going to be what she leads with anymore. And that's just kind of where they go, you know. People don't want to pay attention to the dark stuff anyway. We talked about that. They don't want to pay attention to it, so it is what it is. Who wants to have their head on a swivel when you can just go out and get Starbucks all the time and play your video games for the whole rest of your life and never go outside? Yeah. You gotta. I realize it's an old trope to go out and touch grass, but really, I mean, if you're sitting here trying to make excuses for Lady Gaga trying to reenact Frazzle Drip in front of an audience, it's probably time to go outside.
As I'll say many times, and I'll just say it again, some people are just going to go down with the ship, and there's nothing you can do to pull them out of the ship, and that's just the way that it's going to be, sadly. But, like I said, the one thing that you'll say at the end of the day is that you can't say you weren't warned, and the ship was definitely heading down. You decided not to get off. So,
well, I mean,
any final thoughts about this one?
Yeah, let's see how successful this movie is. I mean, we don't, whether it'll be financially successful or it'll be a flop. For all the praise that Monkey Man got, it wasn't a hit at all. It bombed terribly. And this could be another case of them investing something big into a project, expecting it to be successful, and then audiences will see it's just a bunch of nonsense, and then just like, we're not going to watch it, and they move on. So we'll see.
By the way, when I said it was very interesting that they chose September 19th, for those of you guys who are really in the know, which may only be a few of you guys here listening to this show, but that is literally 4 days before the Feast of Trumpets. And if you know any of the historical biblical reference of the Feast of Trumpets, you kind of know they probably didn't pick that on an accident. I'll just leave it at that. So
also, just with football, you have literal murderers in the game. Like Ray Lewis and Aaron Hernandez are right there.
In all honesty, those are just the notable ones. Didn't we just have some kid get stabbed at a football game 3 days ago or a week ago? Did that just happen?
Austin Metcalf or whatever his name was.
That's a whole thing going on here too. So. Yep, that's a thing that's happening in our world. And now we're gonna cap it off with the only way we can cap off this show, talking about Limp Bizkit. So I'm pretty sure you guys all know that Limp Bizkit has been blamed for a lot of bad things that happened in our world. We all remember Woodstock 1999. There's conspiracy theories about them causing 9/11 because they did a music video there literally 3 months before the planes hit the towers, and that was a whole thing. And Limp Bizkit was this weird cultural time period where it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and all of these bands were mixing rap and rock together, and it was creating new metal, and there was a whole big thing. And then, like I said, we talked about Woodstock 99 where they were performing break stuff, and then all of a sudden, a woman got raped, and they were blaming Limp Bizkit for the violence because, the song was too violent. People were getting too amped for the song and whatnot. And it's there was a lot of other bands there too. And plus, you had 100,000 people in a park in New York, and you had 2 porta potties and 3
I don't know
water
about you,
bottles.
Jacob, but when I hear new metal, I just want to sexually violate someone. It's just the top of my list when I hear new metal is to do that, obviously.
So people have blamed Limp Bizkit for a lot. There was
one
incident...
other thing he used to be blamed for.
Oh, what?
Years of War.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Fanatic. So okay.
Yeah, I blame him for the Fanatic. That was a crime against
John Travolta
humanity.
with that bowl cut.
This comes from Matt C, and he says, I always respect Microsoft for tying the Gears of War franchise to the evolving aura of Fred Durst. So there you go.
Yep.
Fred Durst is in Gears of War.
It should have been the red Yankees cap. That should have been what they went for there. So who knows?
Maybe he was too close. The character is a space Hispanic, so they probably don't want to make sure he has the wrong hat on in space, right? Because he'll get shot.
All right, well, we'll go for that.
What gang is that one, Jacob?
East Side. I don't know. What's a Spanish word that starts with P?
Poppy?
Padres.
Padres.
Oh, damn it.
Padres. Piedras.
So
Pedros. Side Pedros.
Pelotas.
So here's what happened.
No, I'm not going with that one. But there you go.
You guys to be backwards. You can't. No, you have to be backwards.
Okay,
cap,
backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah, see, it doesn't really work that
and
much.
we do, and Cider needed space Hispanic, so there you go.
All right, everyone, activate Limp Bizkit because we're going in. Here's what happened. There was a music festival in 2001. This is pre 9/11, by the way, just in case you were asking. But in 2001, there was a festival in Australia called Big Day Out. And Big Day Out was known for being like, rock bands, a few popish type bands, but you had people like, Limp Bizkit, Rammstein, Coldplay, Queens of the Stone Age, like that.
Rammstein.
Is that how it's seen?
Rammstein. And
I don't know. It's some German nonsense.
I mean,
Rammstein.
Rammstein, yes.
As opposed to Rammenberg.
And I'll say this: I do like some Rammstein. Their cover of "Stripped" from Depeche Mode, it's very good and very scary. It actually frightens me.
Yes.
If you should check it out.
So a lot of things happened, right, Jacob?
A lot of things happened, right? But so they were doing this show in Australia. It was supposed to be like, several days in several different cities all around, the country or whatnot. And Limp Bizkit was the headliner for this particular event. Right?
Mistake number one.
So something happened in between here where security found out very quickly that they had absolutely no control over the situation whatsoever. And this is all going on as Limp Bizkit is performing on screen. While this is happening, a crowd crush begins happening, and essentially it caused several injuries, several people passed out, and one person unfortunately died. Here is the retelling of events that happened there. Understand this here too. Some of the language is going to remind you that this took place in 2001 before, the PC police ruined everything. But this is the retelling of events according to Big Day Out 2001. Once again, pre 9/11. Understand that as well.
We have a little situation.
By the way, one more thing. I'm just going to remind people before we get started here. This video should not get popped for any reason that it does. Go over to Rumble. Go over to X. We're going to keep going with this straight through. So if YouTube decides to be a dick for whatever reason, just go to Rumble. Just go to X, and then we'll finish it there. So there you go.
It's not uncommon in a festival situation for people to get crushed like grapes up at the front. There's really not a lot you can do about it, because asking everybody to step back is not very potent of a solution. But if you could just bear in mind that you don't want to hurt somebody.
So understand what's happening here. So you have thousands upon thousands of people riled up here, like literally cattle. And you have like a sea of security guards who probably only get paid $15 an hour, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. And they're literally trying to crowd watch and like spot people and like go in and pull people out of the crowd if things get a little too rambunctious. But if things really get bad, it's thousands of people and like 20 security guards. There's literally nothing that they can do. And this is essentially what happened.
You could just bear in mind
that
you don't want to hurt somebody, that you don't want to inflict difficulty in somebody breathing in mind.
He's very...
And just change the whole vibe out there so no one's getting crushed.
12 months ago, on the same day, at roughly the same time, the Red Hot Chili Peppers had been faced with a massive crowd crush. The band, with years of experience on the festival circuit, handled the crowd well, with Anthony Kiedis offering a simple, calm message. Despite a lengthy stoppage, the Chili Peppers were able to finish their set without incident. At 9:15 p.m, 1 year later, Limp Bizkit play their intro theme and go straight into their first song, Hot Dog, as the crowd erupts in a wild frenzy. Down the front, 72 security and 12 medics face a massive cascade of punters over the barriers. At 9:23, the first signs of trouble emerge. A security guard gestures for the band to stop so order can be restored. 30 seconds later, Fred Durst tells the crowd, if you see somebody fall down, you got to make sure you pick them up, because you are some crazy motherfuckers out there. Sadly, the only people picking anyone up are the security guards who dive into the throng. People are down near the front of the stage. A minute later, he speaks again. Looks like we got a little problem down the front. I told them before we came. Put Limp Bizkit and 60,000 Aussies in one place and this motherfucker's gonna go crazy. Security guards, realizing the severity of the situation, yell at the band to stop playing. And Durst sees or hears something he doesn't like from one of the security guards. "What did you say, you punk motherfucker?" he says. "What did that big faggot beside you say? This punk right there." Precious life-saving moments have been wasted. The majority of the crowd have not been told to step back. A security guard rushes to event co-producer director Vivian Lees standing at the front of the stage. Durst talks to the crowd. "Everybody be patient. Things are getting a little out of hand." At 9:27, Vivian Lees takes the microphone and speaks with obvious strain.
Please ask the audience to step back, be very gentle with the people around. There are some people down the front who are down. I ask you to just...
Oh, hold on a second. I gotta say this here while we're listening to this. It's like, look, I kind of make this point with like Woodstock too. It's like at some point this is on the organizers of this event, not the band. Like in all honesty, it's not Fred Durst's job to crowd control and make sure that everyone follows the safety regulations and stuff like that. That's not really his job. His job is to perform songs that people want to hear, right? If you have an out of control situation, that means that the organizers really haven't taken any kind of plan or preparations to the fact that, yeah, you're going to have who knows how many thousands of people in attendance to this whole thing. And if something were to go wrong, it's like, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to essentially try to cattle control 60,000 people and all we have is like 30 security guards in yellow shirts? It's like, what do you really do? And if you don't have a plan to deal with that situation, maybe you shouldn't be organizing this event. You know what I mean? Like at some point as an organizer, you kind of have to expect the worst case scenario and figure out what do we do in case this happens.
You're gonna need a lot of 5 gum.
That brought me back to it. There was a couple references I could move with there. It's like, yeah, all I'm thinking about is like old 5 gun commercials, and it's like, oh god. But no, it's like
everybody
seriously.
will chill out. Just give them some 5 gum. You remember the commercial? Chill them right out. They'll be in the middle of giant speakers. They'll love it.
Or hey, just crack open a nice Coors Light and a big train will come in and cool everyone off, right? That's what.
Just murder everybody. Well, just do that whole joke of like who you're gonna run over with the train, but it's everybody.
People all over the world.
Yeah, I suspect that
literally
the organizers expect the performers, because that's what the audience came for, to have a lot of sway and to try to get them to calm people down and to do as they're told to move back. So maybe the organizers give them more power. No, I'm just saying maybe the organizers give the bands or the performers more power than they actually have.
Yeah, and if that's the case, the problem is that you're basically expecting a multi-millionaire band member to do your job for you, and if he
while he's drunk and high.
Yeah, while he's calling security members faggots for literally trying to save people's lives.
But all those people,
situation, it's like,
all those people are drunk probably too. Like that's the thing. Like I'm not saying it's not their fault. It's just a situation that. And here's the thing: like I've been in a mosh pit before, and they can be fun. I have not been in anything like this where you literally have thousands of people that are like in this area, constricting the movement of other people.
And you got to remember, this happened in I believe it was January of 2001, and like even though that's winter for us, I think that's summer for them. It's hot, it's sticky. You got a bunch of people out there listening to heavy metal and rock music and stuff like that, and it's like it's a bad situation.
Even in the small crowds, when you're that tightly packed, it could be very, very dangerous. I know, just real quick, when I went to a Morrissey concert, it was at a small club. He was late, and everyone was so packed in. There were people who were practically fainting because it was just so hot with everyone there, all packed in together. They were falling. It was becoming very dangerous. And because Morrissey was late or close to an hour, if not more, playing the same song over and over, the audience, I'm not kidding, the audience was close to rioting. And I was very concerned because people were becoming very violent, very desperate to get the show on, and he was not showing up. I was close to fainting because everyone's so packed in, and with everyone packed together, with the heat of everyone just coming out and no way out, it's dangerous. And that's in a small space. Imagine 60,000 people all packed in together. It's a very, very dangerous situation to put people in. Even if they willingly go, they need to exercise some sense.
And it only gets worse, as you see here.
Respect your fellow human being. There are some few people in trouble down the front. I ask you to just step back, take one step back, give the people at the front a room and a chance to get up onto their feet. Thank you very much. Please just...
Photographers who have been allowed into the pit to shoot the first 3 songs are let out, shooting as they go. Off mic, Fred can be heard telling someone, "T barricades, mother, I tried to tell you." The barricades are used elsewhere in the world and have been used by AC/DC. They were not in the original security contract for the Big Day Out seen by Channel V, though had reportedly been discussed since incidents in Auckland and the Gold Coast. Having sold 1.5 million tickets to Big Day Outs over the last 10 years, the organisers have good reason to have confidence in their preparation. The front of the stages are lined with security 2 deep. Limp Bizkit later claimed the security didn't know what they were doing. The footage shows there was nothing more they could have done than simply pull people out. Jeff Gray, Big Day Out head of security, can clearly be seen fighting the crowd off as bodies are pulled up. A distressed body is pulled out of the mass and laid onto the ground. Her pulse is taken and she is laid out to recover. At 9:29, 2 unconscious female bodies are pulled out of the crush. 15-year-old Ryan Keogh later tells the press, "I was on the bottom, lying flat on my back. There was a big pile of people on top of me. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dead, that this was it. It was pitch black and I couldn't hear the music. The only thing I could hear was the bloke next to me screaming like I've never heard anyone scream before." Keogh said that he'd been trying to pull Jessica Michaelic up when he'd been knocked over by a crowd surge. As the lifeless bodies are pulled out of the pit, Peter Hoare, otherwise known as a serial pest and infamous for disrupting major events, leaps over the barrier wearing only a bra and carrying a guitar case.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one of these scenes here. It's like, it's a little shaky, but yeah, that was a naked guy who was basically, charging a lot of shit, but we're gonna move on there.
Unsure of what is happening, start a slow hand clap. Circle pits develop without the rhythm of music. A meter from the disaster zone, sweat-drenched boys run round in circles. At 9:30 p.m., Durst speaks again. After 7 minutes of pleading by Big Day Out security, he says,
does that seem like a fun experience for anyone? Because it looks like they're on a war zone and the people, like, bodies are just flopping all over the place and they're desperately trying to, like, patch up wounds and revive people. Like, is this what people consider fun? Because it doesn't look like fun to me. This looks like
frenzy. They are an absolute frenzy at this
point. This looks like hell. This does not look like hell to you people?
Well, look, only the people 3 rows deep can actually see this. Everybody about 5 rows back has no clue any of this is happening. All they can tell is someone up at the stage is saying somebody out there has been hurt. That's all they know. They can't see any of this. They literally see a guy with a yellow shirt get up and jump into the crowd every now and then. That's all they can see. There's 60,000 people packed shoulder to shoulder there, Jacob. You can't see shit. They don't know.
And they're probably also thinking, hey, why isn't the music playing?
They don't have the cameras pointed at the crowd. We're seeing this because of somebody shot on Shidio recording of this. This is they have the cameras on Durst, and he's just hanging out, watching it go down. Like, hey, calm down.
Because remember, concerts back then didn't really have that technology where you can kind of like follow along with like the action as it was happening and stuff like nowadays. You go to modern concert and there's like 100 cameras like everywhere. You see. Yeah, exactly, right? But back then, obviously, they didn't have that luxury.
Everybody take 1 step back, please. They're asking me to tell everybody, take 1 step back and we'll be able to have a big night out, I guess. 2 minutes later, the band launch into break stuff. The crowd lifts. In between songs, Durst asks, okay, for us to play another one, as they segue into My Generation. At 9:43 p.m., there is a second stoppage. An irritated Durst speaks. Hold on, we've got to stop for a second, guys. Once again, there's trouble down the front. He waits.
And another thing, too, somebody pointed this out, and it's absolutely correct. The video, the scene at the beginning of the video was a Red Hot Chili Peppers trying to calm down the crowd a year before this event happened, right? So they had been experienced with this beforehand, which means that in the course of a full year, they made no preparation to be like, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? So
they might have been they might have been fooling themselves into thinking it was a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Then speaks again. Do you know what's great about today? This is Limp Bizkit's last Big Day Out show, and we get to rock it with you in Sydney. We're going to have to depend on ourselves now. You guys have got to help one another out because the security here sucks. Let's help everybody out. Let's show them that we can do it because they sure as fuck can't do it. We told them how to do it. They didn't want to listen, so you guys look around. If you see anybody down, help them up. We can take care of ourselves, man. He pauses. There you go. Now it's working. Now we're coming together. The crowd is restless. More circle pits start up throughout the crowd as males push each other around. 3 minutes later, American voice off stage says, "Let's go home. We're all going home." The crowd is restless. 9 minutes later, a bullshit chant starts from the audience. Fred turns to a member of the Limp Bizkit party. "I'm waiting on you, Chris. I don't know what to do." Another American voice can be heard. "Either sort it out real quick or we'll go back to our dressing rooms." Fire hoses are turned onto the audience to cool them down. Standing on the hill, police can be seen in conference sides.
I'm pretty sure that helped to just start spraying down a bunch of hot, restless, riled up people with water hoses on a hot summer. I'm pretty sure that helped. I'm pretty sure that didn't make matters significantly worse in any way, shape, or form.
It's Australia. Right? They're used to being hosed.
Stage. Press reports the next day claim that the police had insisted Limp Bizkit play on to avoid a riot. At 9:56 p.m., Fred tells the audience,
"He's a really big fan and he didn't want to miss out on this opportunity."
They haven't gotten the nookie yet, man.
I paid $10 dues to be here. I'm not letting the show end because some wackadoodles in the front end have caused a problem. You keep playing, Mr. Backwoods Hat.
They might have thought that it was
open the Fosters.
No, they might have thought that. They might have thought that stopping it would have made the situation. They probably thought stopping it would make the situation worse. This has happened at what was it? A couple Guns N' Roses concerts where they didn't play. It was like them and Metallica for technical reasons. Both of them couldn't do a complete set, and there was a riot, and they tore the place apart. Well, I think it was.
This
Montreal.
happens at your local choke and puke, like every Saturday. Doesn't matter. Like 1 a.m., somebody's getting punched through the back window of a taxi. That's how it goes. How you know the night's over when there's been an assault and battery in the parking lot.
Do you want to riot?
Cider, you really capture that great Australian accent with that braying sound. It's just like at the end. It's just like it's what separates it from the English. Is just this like aggressive, abrasive sound of the accent at the end of it. Love it.
It's all in the nose.
Yep.
It isn't that easy. Being you ain't that easy. With the world as crazy as it is, I suggest you do one thing. That's live your fucking life in the fast lane. In the next break, Durst gets all the girls to climb onto men's shoulders and offers this introduction to faith. This is a dedication to all the ladies from us guys for making our lives miserable. In between songs for the rest of the set, Durst asks the crowd repeatedly, "Is everybody happy? That's all that matters." The band walk off stage at 10:42 p.m. and the search for blame begins. While not diminishing the responsibility of the band and promoters, Channel V believes that violent elements in the crowd are equally culpable for the events that took place.
Oh, really?
So the story here, unfortunately, was this, is that as a result of this event that happened, there was a 16-year-old girl who was killed as a result of this in that whole crush. What was her name? Here, can get it just real quick because I lost my place. And I believe her name was Jessica. Yeah, it was Jessica McCallick who was there, literally a high school student in the middle of this whole thing. You can ask yourself, what is she there at 16 years old? It's like, well, I mean, hey, look, it's a concert. Probably not the best place for her, but yeah, she died as a result of asphyxiation, being crushed in the mosh pit during the show. As a result of the death that happened there, Limp Bizkit had to cancel its last 3 appearances on the leg of the tour. They were supposed to play in Melbourne, Perth, and Adelaide, I believe is the name of the city. They ended up canceling all 3 of those dates and left the tour altogether. Made a statement about it, like I said, once again, pushing the blame off of the organizers of the event, not particularly Limp Bizkit. There's basically the organizers were pointing the finger at Limp Bizkit, saying that they weren't doing good enough crowd control. Limp Bizkit basically said that they didn't have enough security. It wasn't exactly our fault. Wes Borland did express regret for the situation that happened because the girl did die in that case as well. It was a whole shit show. It was an absolute shit show. And this was literally 2 years after Woodstock, which Limp Bizkit got blamed for, performing break stuff, and a couple women got raped as a result of that. So this is around the time where 2001 was literally Limp Bizkit at its height, but they were also getting a lot of heat from concert organizers as a result of this as well. Now, what happened to Big Day Out? Believe it or not, they continued this concert festival for the next 13 years afterwards. It wasn't until the last one took place in 2014 where they completely gave up on the whole thing, and they haven't run one since. But this is just a situation that, you get a lot of rowdy people together and they're not listening because I don't know if it's drugs, dehydration, just pure anger with the case. People don't act properly, and not probably the safest situation to be. And look, we've seen much worse concert mishaps because of this. If you guys recall, I believe it was Travis Scott who was directly involved in that whole WWE thing that happened this weekend. He was involved in a concert situation 5-6 years ago where like 10 people literally got crushed to death in the whole situation. As people were actively dying, he was like telling people like basically ramp it up like even more, and there's a whole lot of sinister things that happen there. But this is the type of stuff that happens at these type of events, and so I was just going to go a quick little memory lane there and get your thoughts about who you think was really responsible for that whole situation, given the audio of what happened. Was it Bizkit's fault? Was it the organizers? Was it the crowd? Like who here should be blamed for this? I'll start with Cider.
To be honest with you, it is the organizers. Much like how you put on a circus or a monster truck show, you kind of have to take into account of the chaotic nature of not just the people performing, not just the animals, not just the trucks flying through the air, but also the crowd that may get a wild idea and decide to follow one another like lemmings to their demise. And that's it happens. People just get entranced with this I forget what it's called. It's like a it's a psychic break that happens, like a mass insanity or something like that. Mass delusion or something, where people just get this idea in their head. They see one guy doing something, 2 guys, 3 guys, and there's 100. And that's kind of what happened here, is that like you got a bunch of people that were drunk and, either on some type of substance or on the moment, and the energy took over, and 60,000 people is a lot of people to not be paying attention to themselves, especially when they're packed into each other shoulder to shoulder. And I never liked the concert scene because of that. I don't believe it's ever a good idea to have people packed in that tight. If you have an open air concert, they should have barriers between them that have barriers between those barriers so that security can move into the crowd as deep as they need to go to get what they need to get immediately, as opposed to just this sea of arms and legs going everywhere. And that, again, like that would have probably mitigated some of the pressure that was on the crowd by deliberately breaking them up with that style of hallway barrier. And they just didn't, they had an issue the previous year and they just didn't think that it was going to persist because, again, like you said, this was before 9/11. This was before the whole push to end terrorism. So they were looking at every venue as an opportunity to become an Al-Qaeda terrorist attack. So undoubtedly, this immediately changed after the 9/11 attacks because everybody around the world went into like, it's crazy, we got to overprotect everything everywhere thing. So I doubt a situation like this ever repeated itself in 2003, 5, 4 going forward. 4, 5, sorry, it doesn't go in that order.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they even had a similar situation to this a year earlier where it almost got bad but didn't, and then you guys made no preparations like a year later, and then you invite Limp Bizkit of all groups and think that the situation is going to improve upon itself. It's like I said, to me, there's just too many missteps there. Rick and then Rob, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Well, I think there's really a lot of blame to go around. I would put the majority of the blame on the organizers. They were aware that this had happened before. They had a year to prepare, and they decided not to for whatever reason. But I think also the crowd already kind of unruly, and I presume that this was an all-day event, so they were already kind of energized and going through all sorts of activities to get themselves pumped up, they're already very poorly controlled themselves. And you just add this mix of the music of the packed venue, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. And it's unfortunate that a person's life has been lost. This is not the first time where something like this has happened, but I think most of it is on the organizers. And you brought up, what was it, Woodstock? Again, look at how poorly organized that was, where you had very few facilities. You didn't have much in terms of water or other types of healthy refreshments, and you price them way too high for people to purchase. So the organizers, I think, bear the majority of the blame, but I think certain people who are at the front, and there's always this weird instinct that I never understood in concerts, this weird instinct to try to run up to the very front, to be as close to them even though you're going to be far. That does not help. I've been in concerts where I'm further back because I know that there's going to be kind of a mad push there. So some of it is on the audience, but most of it, I think, is with the organizers, who should know and who should prepare. If they've had this thing happen before, there was very little reason why they should not have planned it better. And this goes for every kind of concert. You know the audience. You know what kind of audience you're going to get. You have to be prepared for it, and you have to know that it could devolve into something dangerous.
Yep. Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when something like this happens, it's usually going to be on the organizers. I mean, the musical act can only really do so much. They can try to kind of wrangle and cajole and convince the people to stop acting in this hyped up, aggressive manner. And like, I've been there. I understand some, like, how it, if you need like a good 30 seconds or 45 seconds to realize what's going on and to try to like not be contributing to it. Like, I understand it's a chaotic environment, but yeah, it's just you would hope that people would be a little bit more aware, would act better in the situation. But once you have a situation like that, and once these people have been riled up, it starts to turn into a I don't know what to call it, a force of nature, something that has a life of its own. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it gets scary. It gets really to the point where, okay, people are actually in danger. People are actually having trouble breathing. There's not enough room. It's becoming compressed in terms of the space. So, and you just don't want that to happen. And of course, the organizers will be looked at because they're the ones that are profiting off of this for the most part. It's like, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good when you charge people this much and you give them this venue and the space, and then you don't really appropriately accommodate for appropriate safety measures. It's a bad look all around. So yeah. And if this was an all-day event, if it's a festival, it's just like, those are basics. Those are very base. I mean, I know this from going to sporting events. I mean, there were in the UK, there were people crushed at soccer matches because of just the venue and them not being properly regulated and what have you. So, I mean, I've been in football stadiums with 80,000 people at one time, and like, it's one of the big things that people don't think about with sporting events is the amount of time it gets to get to your seat and the amount of time it takes to literally leave the stadium with 80,000 other people. And you do it calmly, you do it in orderly fashion, whatever. But yeah, there's a reason that this stuff is looked at and accounted for, because tragedies like this have happened, can happen. And it's the last thing ultimately you want to happen. But there are occurrences like this, and hopefully, people take the proper precautions. But yeah, I'm not going to blame Limp Bizkit for basically showing up and doing what he does. It's like, it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't think that he would ever be found liable. But I don't know what the Australian laws are or anything like that.
Well, I would add one real quick thing here. I can imagine just seeing the footage, all of these, the woman that died, she was probably smaller then, in 16-year-old, she was probably smaller than the guys that were around her, who were bigger and more muscular. So they're pressing. All of these bodies are pressing up against a smaller, probably weaker person. It's going to put much more pressure on her, and they were, I guess, too in a frenzy to really think, or maybe they were being pushed themselves. Sometimes when you're in those situations, you're trying to do the right thing and go back, but the people behind you are pushing against you, so they're not letting you. That's also very bad. That's what happened at that Morrissey concert that I went to. It was very packed, and anyone who was trying to move was making it difficult for making it difficult for others who were trying to move forward, and that's why you were having all these people, and they were getting pulled. I did see the guards getting, pulling people out. It was really bad. So I imagine this king size with 60,000 people just trying to push forward, and maybe you're trying to push back, but you can't. And so they're forcing you to go up against someone who is smaller than you, and you're going to have this terrible, terrible tragedy of someone dying.
Yep. And like I said, it didn't seem like that a lot of these concerts, especially around that time period, was probably a good thing. And who knows, maybe that had a little bit to do with the fact that, towards this period of like the mid 2000s, we kind of started shifting away from kind of like that new metal music scene. And there's kind of a reason why everything now is more pop rap type stuff now, and that's kind of like the new thing where there's still like metal concerts and rock concerts they go on now, but you really have to be kind of more of an inquired person or someone who grew up on that to go to those type of events now. It's not the mainstream thing like anymore, and like I said, it was then, and then look what happens. Maybe that's a good thing. We kind of should moved away from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. Was it a few weeks back when you were showing us that footage of that No Doubt concert in that school? They didn't have this kind of problem, probably because they weren't also, most of them, I presume, were not under the influence of something. Maybe some of them were, but
well, it was also wasn't new metal either. So
and it was smaller, and they were probably more contained. They were excited, they were thrilled, but they were not going into this frenzy. And of course, they weren't so packed in. There was a wide space in that area, so there was a lot of other factors. But I think it would be the organizers who should.
Here's the thing, though, Rick, is that the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who they showed kind of like quelled the thing a year earlier. I would actually put Red Hot Chili Peppers and No Doubt in the same category. So while like it's energetic music, I wouldn't say either one of those is like new metal. New metal is like how I would categorize like Slipknot and like, I don't know.
I mean,
there's a bunch
Linkin
of bands.
Park, Limp Bizkit,
right.
Korn, stuff like that.
Right. It's not what I would call. I mean, again, I actually used to go to like actual metal shows, where they growl the lyrics. Like that to me is what metal is, whereas like new metal is a more accessible, approachable kind of like version of that. But obviously, you can still listen to it. It's actually,
Yes, but I think it was probably that surprise concert was probably better planned, and it's sad that concert was better planned than this one, especially since they had a poor experience last year.
Rick, do you know why that is?
No,
it's because MTV is owned by Viacom. There's no fucking way Viacom's going to be liable for somebody die. You know what I mean, though? Like I at least have that angle to it, where it's like, okay, I could at least be like, okay, this was pretty well planned out, and because they're asking on the
but there again, it's the organization, it's the people organizing it, and all the people in this big day out. They knew what could happen. They saw it happen before, and they took very little, there were very little precautions. That got someone killed. So that was a major contributing factor. It's terrible, and it's not the only time. You mentioned that Travis Scott. I remember that case. That's again, people should not be dying when they go to these shows.
Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that the crowd doesn't play a role in this, but yeah, part of the crowd, you gotta have somewhat of control, but then again, maybe that is some of the allure to some of these events that they have absolutely no control. But yeah, we'll talk about that on a different day. For now, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show and get on out of here. So this is the part where you tell people what you got coming up here, so we can work on it, get on out of here. We'll start with Red Cap over here.
All right, this is the only red cap I would wear in public, by the way. What I've got working on is just reviews. I'm finally going to do my best of 2024, and I'm still working my way through the Best Actress retrospective. So we'll see what actresses I think are the best in the Oscar-winning roles and which ones are their worst. So, Mikey Madison, if you're listening, don't expect to be too high on my list. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you, everyone.
All right, Rob.
Yep. I got nothing. No, just kidding. I'm getting into the swing of new movies this year. So I mean that's exciting. I guess. So I'll have at least something to talk about movie related on my Twitter account. I've been a little preoccupied. I had my vacation. I've been kind of all over the map, but just follow me over my Twitter. I'll talk about movies and other things that are unrelated. Bye.
All right. Cider.
8 p.m. tomorrow. Bounding stuff. Yes.
That's it. That's all we got. Okay. Yeah, me. What am I got coming up here? So I should be back on the 01 tomorrow. But Bounding in the Comics, I might be a little bit late, but I should be there tomorrow. As far as everything's going on right now, it's still kind of a weird period where, it's day by day, but I want to try to get back to some structure. So I do plan on doing a Bible Lens this Sunday, barring anything happening unforeseen. And like I said, I still owe you guys that episode about Hollywood's history of Gnosticism. We'll be doing that on Sunday. So appreciate all the prayers, appreciate all the people reaching out. Like I said, things are going well now, but like I said, it's a day by day thing. So trying to get back to having some structure here. Hopefully this weekend I can have a little bit of time to catch up on some movie reviews. I have still been watching some movies here. I just haven't had time to do the reviews and sit down and all that stuff because my time is pretty limited right now and I'm focused on other things. But we're going to work on trying to get back into the groove here over the course of the next few weeks. And then hopefully I'll be back here same time next week for episode 147. So for everyone who joined us here, thank you guys for joining us. By the way, like I said before, if you guys want to watch the last 10-15 minutes of Saturday's show, go on our Rumble side of things. It's still up there, so go check that out. Until then, adios, goodbye, and good night. Now we're going to hit the outro, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Wave to the crowd. Wave harder!
I need to blink, please.
I was literally waiting to see how long it would take for him to realize that we haven't even hit the outro. Bye.
Okay.
Making your way through the daily grind takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to tune away? All those nights when you're feeling low, the rent is overdue, and your coffee maker's broken, your luck just seems to skew, and your boss is always on your case. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. Roll out of bed and you feel the dread. The morning's looking bleak, and your internet is down again. You haven't slept all week, and your car just broke down on the way. Be glad there's a place online where you can feel at ease. In the barroom, podcast friends, we share our thoughts and tease. Every story shared, every laugh so free. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. So here's to the moments we ballroom of the airwaves with friends so near. Every story shared, every heartfelt cheer. It's more than just a podcast, it's where we steer.
I still don't feel like I know how to shoot these things.